The night at Qing'an Fortress had never belonged to humanity. Deep in the wasteland, mutated beasts howled one after another. I gripped my alloy spear and walked forward along Section 7 of the city wall. Well, if it isn't useless Qin Yuan. Laughter came from behind me. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Zhao Hong, an E-rank enhancement type, unlocked 1. His strength was 3 times that of an ordinary person. He had only awakened not long ago, yet his ego was already practically pointing at the sky. He brought 2 lackeys with him and blocked my path, placing one hand on my shoulder. "I'm talking to you. Are you deaf?" His 5 fingers slowly tightened. It was obvious he wanted to force me to lower my head. I stopped and glanced at him. "Something you need?" Zhao Heng's face darkened. "What kind of look is that?" "The look one gives a person." The 2 beside him immediately stopped laughing. Zhao Hong, meanwhile, looked so choked that a vein throbbed at his temple. This was what he hated most about me. A patrol soldier who had failed to awaken. What right did I have not to fear him? Fine. Still got a tough mouth. He stretched his hand out in front of me. "Hand over this month's supply ration vouchers." "Why should I?" "Because I'm an awakened one." Zhao Hong leaned closer and lowered his voice. "You're just trash. You walk a few laps along the wall every day. Giving you so much food is a waste. Understand?" The 2 behind him jeered along. I stared at him for 2 seconds, took out my ration vouchers, and slapped them into his hand. Zhao Hong froze for a moment, then laughed. "That's more like it." He waved the ration vouchers in front of my face. "Trash should know its place." The 3 of them left, laughing loudly. I turned around and continued my patrol. It wasn't that I couldn't beat him. If I truly made a move, according to Fortress law, a non-awakened person attacking an awakened one would be directly struck from the registry and expelled from the city. Out in the current wasteland, an ordinary person couldn't survive a single night. I still couldn't die. At least, not before I found out the truth about what happened 3 years ago. 3 years ago, the sky curtain descended. A scarlet light screen covered the entire world, and source radiation fell from the heavens. Animals mutated, plants grew wildly, and spatial rifts tore the earth open. Human civilization collapsed overnight. It was also on that day that a small number of people opened their genetic locks and became awakened ones. They were stronger, faster, and more qualified to survive. As for me, the conclusion I received from my genetic test was only 6 words. Genetic channel permanently closed. I would never awaken in this lifetime. And so, I became a patrol soldier at the very bottom. I did the most dangerous work and received just enough rations to avoid starving to death. I walked to a corner of the city wall and stopped. A searchlight swept across the wasteland. 300 meters away, a mutated hyena raised its head and stared at me, its green beast eyes flickering in the darkness. A D-rank mutated beast. The wall turrets could deal with it. I was just about to turn around when a tremor suddenly came from beneath my feet. Buzz. Once. Twice. Heavy, rhythmic. As if something was ramming the city wall. I abruptly lowered my head. The next second, the base of the wall exploded with a thunderous roar. Shattered stones flew everywhere. A black shadow shot out from the breach and smashed heavily onto the passageway. The alarm instantly blared. Section 7 wall has been breached. C-rank mutated beast detected. All patrol soldiers evacuate immediately and await reinforcement from the awakened squad. Through the communicator, the duty commander's voice was almost hoarse from shouting. The dust dispersed. A nearly 3-meter-long iron-armored lizard blocked my path. Its entire body was covered in blue-black metallic scales, and 2 bone spikes curved outward from its skull. It opened its mouth, and bits of flesh and blood still hung from its saw-like teeth. A C-rank mutated beast, one capable of ramming through the city wall head-on. At the other end of the passageway, 2 patrol soldiers had already collapsed to the ground. "Help, help! Don't come over!" The iron-armored lizard didn't look at them. It stared fixedly at me. I tightened my grip on the spear and quickly swept my eyes around. The nearest automatic turret was 80 meters away. The awakened garrison point was at Section 5 of the city wall. Even the fastest reinforcements would take 3 minutes. But this thing wouldn't need 3 seconds to kill me. "Qin Yuan, run!" Someone roared through the communicator. Too late. The iron-armored lizard kicked off with its hind legs. Boom. The floor tile shattered. It lunged toward me like a cannonball. I raised my spear horizontally. In the next instant, The alloy shaft snapped on the spot. The iron-armored lizard's head slammed into my chest, and my entire body flew backward, my back smashing heavily into the battlements. A burst of explosive pain came from my chest. I opened my mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Qin Yuan. Someone called my name through the communicator. I didn't respond. The iron-armored lizard had already turned its body around and charged at me again. Its mouth opened wider and wider. A foul stench rushed toward my face. Was I going to die? No. I still hadn't found that person. I still hadn't asked him why he took my younger sister away 3 years ago. I couldn't die. Get the hell away from me. I propped myself against the battlements and stood up. At that very moment, a crisp sound suddenly came from deep within my chest. Click. Like a lock rusted shut for 3 years had been forcibly twisted open. Scalding power exploded from my heart and instantly surged throughout my entire body. My blood was boiling. My bones were vibrating. Every muscle felt as if it had been torn apart and then forcibly stitched back together. Pain. But even more than that, power. A power so immense it almost felt like it would burst my body apart. The iron-armored lizard had already reached me. Qin Yuan, dodge. I didn't dodge. I threw away the broken spear and raised my right fist. Then I aimed at its head and punched. Bang! My fist collided with the beast's skull. The air in front of me exploded into a ring of white shock waves. The metallic scales on the iron-armored lizard instantly cracked. 1 crack, 10 cracks, hundreds of cracks. The cracks spread wildly across its skull with my fist as the center. The next second, its entire head exploded with a thunderous blast. Scalding beast blood splashed all over me. The iron-armored lizard's massive body flew backward, slid over 10 meters along the passageway, and finally crashed into the city wall, motionless. Dead. The city wall suddenly fell silent. The 2 patrol soldiers stared at me, even forgetting to breathe. Only a piercing static remained in the communicator. After several seconds, someone finally asked in a trembling voice, "What just happened?" He punched the iron-armored lizard to death. Who? Qin Yuan. Which Qin Yuan? That Qin Yuan. The one who failed to awaken. I lowered my head and looked at my right fist. No injury. Not even the skin was broken. That power hadn't faded either. Instead, it was still rising. Layer after layer, it washed through my bones and muscles. Immediately afterward, a line of golden text appeared before my eyes. SSS-Rank genetic lock, origin has been activated. I stared at that line of text, and my breathing stopped for an instant. 3 years ago, everyone said I would never awaken in this lifetime. Now, I had awakened, and it was a rank that had never appeared before. Rapid footsteps came from the distance. The awakened squad had arrived. Move aside. Inspect the mutated beast corpse. Qin Yuan, raise your hands. Don't move. Several black-clad awakened ones quickly surrounded the scene. The man leading the squad crouched beside the iron-armored lizard's corpse. He looked at its shattered head, then turned to me. You killed it. Yes. How? With 1 punch. He frowned. 1 punch. Yes. The 2 patrol soldiers beside him immediately spoke up. Captain, it really was him. We saw it with our own eyes. He blew that thing's head apart with 1 punch. The squad leader swept his gaze over them. Are you sure it wasn't a follow-up shot from the automatic turret? The turret never even activated. Enough. The squad leader stood and stared at me for several seconds. Where's the surveillance footage? Dust interference. The image isn't clear. Then report it as a turret follow-up shot. The 2 patrol soldiers froze. But it was clearly Qin Yuan. I said, report it as a turret follow-up shot. The squad leader's voice turned cold. A person who supposedly can never awaken in his lifetime kills a C-rank mutated beast with 1 punch. Do you know what kind of attention that report will attract if it's submitted? No one spoke. I understood. He wasn't stealing credit. He was suppressing the matter. But I didn't believe he was protecting me. Qin Yuan. He walked up to me. Don't spread what happened tonight for now. Reason? Because you still don't know what you are. He patted my shoulder. Something too rare isn't necessarily treated as human. With that, he led his men away, dragging the iron-armored lizard's corpse with them. I stood where I was and watched them leave. He was right. Before I understood this lock, I couldn't expose myself. But I needed equipment. In the entire fortress, there was only one person who would help me. Lin Chuan. At 2 in the morning, I climbed into the logistics maintenance station. As soon as I landed, a wrench flew toward me. I tilted my head and dodged. The wrench smashed into the wall and clattered to the ground. Who's there? Lin Chuan poked his head out from behind the equipment, still holding a second wrench in his hand. Once he saw it was me, he immediately rushed over. Old Sheen, it's me. Don't you know how to knock? It would leave a record. Lin Chuan tossed the wrench aside and looked me up and down. His gaze quickly stopped on the bloodstains on my chest. What happened on the wall? Was that really you? Yeah. A C-rank iron-armored lizard? Yeah. One punch. Yeah. Lin Chuan stared at me, suddenly inhaled deeply, then turned around and cursed with such force it almost seemed like he would blow the roof off the warehouse. After cursing, he abruptly turned back. You awakened? Probably. What do you mean, probably? I don't know the rank, and I don't know the sequence. So you came to me? Yes. I looked toward the corner of the warehouse. There stood a dust-covered portable genetic sequence analyzer. Lin Chuan followed my gaze, and his expression immediately became serious. GS-07 model. Obsolete junk from 10 years ago. It can only detect up to B rank. That's enough. What if you're above B rank? Test me first. Lin Chuan fell silent for a moment, then turned and powered it on. Fine. But let's be clear. If this thing explodes, I'm saying rats chewed through it. There are half-meter-long rats in the fortress? The sky curtain descended. What's so strange about rats growing half a meter long? He patted the sensor panel. Put your hand here. I took off my glove and pressed my right hand onto it. Blue light lit up. Scan beginning. 30 seconds. Lin Chuan stared at the data screen. 10 seconds later, the data stream suddenly accelerated. Lin Chuan's smile vanished. Wait. What is it? The numbers are wrong. The blue scanning light rapidly turned white. The chassis began to vibrate. The parts on the workbench rattled loudly. Lin Chuan tapped the screen several times in succession. The data volume is too large. What rank? Can't tell yet. Strength type? Doesn't look like it. Speed type? Doesn't look like that either. Lin Chuan's voice grew more and more urgent. Your genetic fluctuations are changing. No, not changing, overlapping. How can two sets of sequences be expressing at the same time? 15 seconds. The instrument's vibrations grew stronger and stronger. The numbers on the screen jumped wildly. It's above C rank. Lin Chuan slammed the stop button. No response. Turn it off. I'm trying. Cut the power. I can't. The instrument is reverse locking the power supply. 20 seconds. Red warnings filled the screen. Sequence conflict detected. Test result abnormal. Fluctuation value exceeds device limit. Lin Chuan's face changed completely. It's already above the B rank measuring range, and it's still rising. Get my hand off. The sensor field locked it in. 25 seconds. The panel was as hot as red-hot iron. Yet my hand felt no pain. On the contrary, that machine was afraid of me. I could clearly feel it. It couldn't hold on much longer. Lin Chuan, get down. What? Get down. I pushed him to the floor. The next second, the control screen exploded with a thunderous blast. Shards of glass and sparks swept across the warehouse. The inside of the chassis erupted in a series of explosions, and thick smoke poured from the vents. The scanning light went out. The instrument was ruined. Lin Chuan lay on the floor and slowly raised his head. His goggles were covered in soot. He looked at the instrument, then at me. The corners of his mouth twitched twice. It really exploded. I saw. The logistics department is going to kill me. Say rats chewed through it. Lin Chuan fell silent. He probably wanted very badly to curse at me. But right now, the result was more important. I removed my hand from the scorched panel. What were the final readings? The main screen blew up. What readings? The backup record board. Lin Chuan froze, then hurriedly climbed up and rushed to the side of the chassis. He lifted the protective cover and wiped away the soot on it. The record board flickered a few times, then revealed a line of incomplete text. Lin Chuan's movement stiffened. What is it? He didn't answer. Speak. The sequence rank. Lin Chuan raised his head, his eyes full of shock. Unknown. What does that mean? Beyond the measuring range. Unable to identify. The only 4 words recorded at the end were these. Which 4? Sequence unknown. The warehouse fell silent. I looked at the smoking instrument, and the golden text appeared before my eyes again. SSS-Rank genetic lock, origin. It only appeared for an instant. Lin Chuan clearly couldn't see it. Old Qin. He lowered his voice. What exactly did you awaken? I'd like to know too. No one else can find out about this. What about the instrument? I'll handle it. And the surveillance? The camera on the east side of the maintenance station broke yesterday. I looked at him. Lin Chuan pushed up his goggles. Don't look at me like that. I didn't predict in advance that you'd blow up the instrument. That thing really was broken. This matter dies in your stomach. Don't worry. Lin Chuan patted his chest. If something really happens to you, who am I supposed to borrow ration vouchers from in the future? I looked at him. My ration vouchers for this month were just taken by Zhao Hong. Who? Zhao Hong. Lin Chuan's face instantly darkened. Him again. He won't get another chance in the future. I turned and walked toward the window. Lin Chuan asked after me, where are you going? To test my abilities. Now. After leaving the maintenance station, I went straight to the abandoned training ground on the outskirts of the fortress. This place had been destroyed by a beast tide 3 months ago, and no one patrolled it at night. Perfect for me. I stood in front of a ruined wall and clenched my right fist. Come out. Deep within my heart, that power immediately responded to me. Heat surged toward my limbs. My muscles tightened inch by inch. I stepped forward and punched the wall. Bang! The entire concrete wall trembled violently. At the spot where my fist landed, a basin-sized crater directly exploded open. Cracks spread outward, and large chunks of cement crashed down. I withdrew my fist. No injury. Strength type. At least C rank. Maybe even higher. I threw 3 more punches in succession. Bang! 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 The ruined wall collapsed completely. But that wasn't all. I closed my eyes and pressed my attention toward my heart. There, it was as if a miniature sun were suspended. At the 2 ends of that sun were 2 different points of light. One red, one blue. Red represented strength. Then what about blue? My consciousness touched the blue point of light. Click. A faint sound like a gear shifting came from within my body. The heat pouring into my muscles instantly changed direction, flowing rapidly along my bones, tendons, and nerve endings. My body suddenly became lighter. Everything around me also slowed down. Dust hung suspended in midair. Broken stones were in the process of falling. Even the trajectory of the distant searchlight's rotation became incomparably clear. I lifted my foot and moved forward. Whoosh! The sound of wind exploded beside my ears. With just 1 step, I had already rushed more than 10 meters away. I forced myself to stop, my feet dragging 2 charred marks across the ground. Looking back at where I had started, my breathing finally became unsteady. Not because I was tired, but because this completely violated the known rules of human awakening. 1 person, 1 lock, 1 sequence. If someone awakened as strength type, it was impossible for them to possess speed type as well. That was an iron law. But I had 2, and I could switch between them freely. Strength. I clenched my fist. The red point of light lit up. My body instantly became heavier, and explosive power returned once more. Speed. The blue point of light lit up. The power receded, and my neural reactions and movement speed suddenly soared. No delay. No side effects. I could even feel that these 2 points of light were only the beginning. Just then, intense pain pierced through my mind without warning. I let out a muffled groan and dropped to 1 knee. It felt as though someone had stabbed a red-hot iron rod into my temple and was stirring it violently. I clutched my head tightly, my fingertips digging into the ground. Immediately afterward, countless shattered images surged into my consciousness. The void. A boundless void. Countless points of light floated within it. Each point of light was a genetic sequence. Some were faint. Some were blazing. Some were like flames. Some were like thunder. There were also some points of light wrapped in darkness, emitting an aura that made me instinctively tremble. And at the deepest point among all the lights, a blazing white star slowly rotated. It was like the starting point of all sequences, and also like the end point of all power. An icy voice rang directly in my mind. Full sequence genetic map loading. Current progress, 0.01%. Warning, host genetic vessel has insufficient carrying capacity. Loading speed has been automatically restricted. Next stage unlock condition. Genetic strength reaches C rank. The image shattered abruptly. I opened my eyes and gasped heavily. My training uniform was already soaked with cold sweat. Blood dripped from the tip of my nose and struck the ground. I raised my hand to wipe it away, then supported myself on my knees and stood. Full sequence genetic map. Not one sequence. Not two. All of them. I finally understood what the word origin meant. It wasn't any one kind of power. It was the source of all genetic sequences. As long as my body could withstand it, I could continuously unlock new sequences. Strength, speed, perhaps even abilities humanity had never discovered. And now, the loading progress was only 0.01%. I raised my head and looked toward the wasteland outside the fortress. From the depths of darkness, mutated beasts howled again. Soon, another howl came from even farther away. As if responding, as if summoning, I clenched my fists, golden patterns slowly rotating deep within my pupils. 3 years ago, they said I would never awaken in this life. 3 years later, a C-rank mutated beast had used its life to smash open this lock for me. Xiaoheng had taken my ration vouchers. The fortress regarded me as trash. And the person who took my sister away might still think I could only cower on the city wall and wait to die. That was fine. Debts had to be settled one by one. People had to be found one by one. As for the genetic strength needed to level up, I stared at the scarlet beast eyes flickering faintly in the wasteland and climbed over the training ground wall. If I'm lacking strength, then I'll kill for it. I'll kill until I reach C rank. When I returned to the dormitory, the sky still hadn't brightened. I had just lain down when that city began burning in my mind again. Silver-white city walls, black flames soaring into the sky. Tower after tower snapped and crashed into the sea of fire. Countless people were fleeing, and countless others were attacking. And at the highest point of the city wall stood only one person. I couldn't see his face. I could only see the light on his body. Red, blue, purple, gold. All colors intertwined together, like a star about to explode. A thought appeared directly in my mind. Full sequence awakened one. The next second, the crowd outside the city attacked at the same time. Thousands upon thousands of genetic lights soared into the sky. Among them were even S-rank and SS-rank awakened ones. They had only one target: to kill the person on the city wall. The icy voice sounded after that. Genetic memory fragment. Doomsday Chronicles, First Era. Full sequence awakened ones are the natural enemies of all single sequence awakened ones. They possess the potential to devour, replicate, and suppress all single sequence genetic locks. Throughout history, every birth of a full sequence awakened one has been met with joint annihilation by the awakened factions. Warning: exposure means death. The image shattered instantly. I abruptly opened my eyes. Cold sweat had already soaked my back. Heavy snoring came from the upper bunk. The person beside me turned over, and the iron bed frame creaked under the weight. No one noticed anything unusual about me. I lay in the darkness and slowly clenched my right fist. Exposure means death. Those 4 words were no longer a reminder. They were a death warrant. Even an E-rank awakened one like Xiaoheng dared to live by stepping on the faces of ordinary people. If Qingyan Fortress learned that I was a full sequence awakened one, it wouldn't be only Xiaoheng who came. The city lord would come. Federal enforcers would come. Those high and mighty S-rank awakened ones would come too. They wouldn't give me a chance to explain, nor would they wait for me to grow. My current loading progress was only 0.01%. 2 sequences. I hadn't even reached C-rank genetic strength. If I was truly exposed, I wouldn't be a natural enemy. I would be a piece of meat placed before a pack of wolves. Then I'll endure. I stared at the bedboard above me and spoke to myself, word by word. It wasn't fear. It was because I needed to live. Only by living could I find my younger sister. Only by living could I uncover who took her away 3 years ago. And only by living could I make everyone who had stepped on me repay what they owed me, debt by debt. From now on, I was still Qin Yuan, an awakening failure, a patrol soldier at the very bottom. If anyone asked about last night's iron-armored lizard, there was only one answer. The turret killed it. As for my power? None. I knew nothing. After thinking it through, I turned over and sat up. The unlock condition for the next stage was reaching C-rank genetic strength. If I wanted to improve, I had to fight. If I wanted to fight, I had to leave the city and kill mutated beasts. I couldn't publicly reveal my awakened identity, which meant I could only act in secret during night patrols. Dangerous, but feasible. As long as I was fast enough, No one would know. Bang! The dormitory door was suddenly kicked open. Get up. All of you get up. Blinding lights came on. The duty squad leader, Wei Biao, stood at the door with a loudspeaker in hand, roaring at the top of his lungs. Gather at C District Plaza in 5 minutes. The Fortress Administration has an emergency announcement. Anyone who dares to be late gets half a month's rations deducted. The dormitory instantly erupted. It's not even dawn yet. What the hell are they doing? Something only just happened on the wall last night. Don't tell me there's another beast tied. Half a month's rations? Why don't they just starve us to death directly? Someone vented their anger in an extremely unpleasant tone while getting dressed. Wei Biao slammed the loudspeaker heavily against the doorframe. 4 minutes left. If you want to complain, go complain outside the city. Everyone immediately shut up. I put on my training uniform and walked out of the dormitory mixed in with the crowd. C District Plaza was packed with patrol soldiers. Over 100 people stood crookedly in formation. Quite a few were still half asleep, shivering with their necks tucked in from the cold. At the front of the plaza, an old holographic screen flickered several times. The Fortress Administrative Officer, Zhou Defa, appeared on the screen. Balding, short and fat, smiling as if he had just scraped a layer of oil off someone. Everyone, you've worked hard. Someone in the crowd muttered in a low voice. If you really think we've worked hard, give us 2 more ration vouchers. Someone beside him immediately laughed. Zhou Defa, of course, couldn't hear it. He cleared his throat and continued. Central Federal City has just issued a notice. 1 month from now, on May 23rd, Qing'an Fortress will host this year's Newcomer Awakened Selection Tournament. Murmurs immediately rose around me. Selection tournament? Another Awakened matter. Why wake us up for this? Probably afraid we were sleeping too comfortably. I stood at the very back of the crowd and said nothing. Zhou Defa raised his hand. Quiet. This year's selection tournament is different from previous years. It will be hosted by the Federal Genetic Research Institute directly. The final top 3 will directly obtain entry qualifications to Central Federal City. In addition, each of them will be rewarded with 1 A-rank genetic enhancement serum. The plaza fell silent for an instant. Immediately afterward, everyone became alert. What serum? A-rank. Is that real? Even Wei Biao's eyes widened. An A-rank genetic enhancement serum. The entire Qing'an Fortress couldn't even receive many of those in a year. 1 serum could potentially allow an awakened one's genetic lock to cross an entire major rank. It was something an ordinary person couldn't afford even after struggling for a lifetime. Zhou Defa was clearly very satisfied with everyone's reaction. There is only one requirement for registration. He raised 1 finger. Possession of an already awakened genetic lock. Rank does not matter. Age does not matter. Even if it is only F rank, you may register. My heart suddenly jumped. Even F rank could register. Those words sounded as if they were spoken directly to me. Registration begins today and ends on May 10th. I hope all of you will inform anyone around you who qualifies. Dismissed. The holographic image vanished. The crowd immediately dispersed. Nothing to do with us. Back to sleep. Awakened ones get A-rank serums, while we can't even eat our fill. Say less. If they hear you, they'll deduct your rations again. Everyone was walking back toward the dormitories. Only I remained standing where I was. 1 month. Selection tournament. Central Federal City. I had originally planned to secretly leave the city to hunt mutated beasts and slowly increase my genetic strength. But that path was too slow. And once I was caught leaving the city without authorization, I would likewise be struck from the registry and expelled. Registering for the selection tournament was different. As long as I obtained a public awakened identity, I could legally access resources, legally participate in battles, and even enter Central Federal City. That place had the most advanced genetic equipment. It had higher concentration source radiation zones. It also had the mutated beasts and serums I needed. Of course, the risk was obvious too. 3 years ago, my test results said I would never awaken in this lifetime. If I suddenly registered now, it would definitely draw attention. But never awaken in this lifetime was only an old result. Source radiation changed everything. A late natural awakening, although rare, was not completely impossible to explain. As long as I used only the strength sequence, I could disguise myself as a newly awakened F-rank strength type. What I needed to hide was the full sequence, not remain useless forever. What are you thinking about? A hand suddenly patted my shoulder. I instinctively almost counterattacked. After seeing who it was, my fist stopped in midair. Lin Chuan stood behind me with two dark circles under his eyes, his hair so messy it looked like it had been gnawed by a mutated beast. He glanced at my fist, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Old Sheen, I only patted you. Next time, say something first. You didn't used to react this strongly. I didn't sleep well last night. Neither did I. Lin Chuan gritted his teeth and lowered his voice. I spent half the night making that instrument look like it self-ignited from circuit aging. Do you know how exhausting that lie was to build? Anyone suspicious? Not for now. He leaned closer to me. But when the maintenance supervisor saw the instrument this morning, he became very emotional. On the spot, he greeted the relatives of everyone in the maintenance station in an extremely forceful manner. And then I said the fuse had aged. He believed you. He said that instrument doesn't even have a fuse. I looked at Lin Chuan. Lin Chuan looked back at me. After 2 seconds of silence, he spread his hands. So I said a mutated rat chewed through it. A half-meter-long one. Exactly. He believed you? No. Then how did you get out? The broadcast happened to call everyone to gather, so I ran. He said it with complete confidence. I patted his shoulder. Thanks for the trouble. Don't just say thanks. Lin Chuan held out his hand toward me. Give me 1 ration voucher this month. My vouchers were taken by Zhaohong. Why didn't you say so earlier? Lin Chuan's face immediately darkened. That guy again? The one who thinks he can bully everyone just because he awakened? Yeah. I'll go find him. With what? Lin Chuan got stuck. He was an F-rank perception type. His combat ability was about the same as an ordinary person's. Zhao Heng could punch him into the medical station with 1 blow. I grabbed his shoulder. Don't go. Then what about your rations? He'll give them back. A person like him will voluntarily return them. I didn't say I'd make him do it voluntarily. Lin Chuan froze. Then he looked into my eyes, seemingly understanding something. You're really going to register? Yes. He immediately glanced left and right, making sure no one was approaching. Are you crazy? Keep your voice down. Lin Chuan lowered his voice, but his speech became even faster. You burned out the instrument last night, and your sequence rank couldn't be measured at all. If you register now and blow up another machine during the official test, then what? I'll only show the strength sequence. Can you control it? Yes. You're sure? At least more reliable than that broken instrument of yours. That was obsolete federal equipment, not a broken instrument. Now it's scrap metal. Lin Chuan clearly wanted to express his emotions in an intense manner again, but he gritted his teeth and forcibly held it in. Fine. Let's say you can control it. But your file from 3 years ago says awakening failure, genetic channel permanently closed. If you suddenly awaken now, won't someone investigate you? They will. Then you're still registering? If I don't, I can only spend my whole life on the city wall. I looked toward the distant wasteland. Secretly killing mutated beasts, secretly improving, secretly surviving. That isn't hiding. That's waiting to die. Lin Chuan frowned deeply. But you said that thing of yours can't be exposed. That's why I need to act. Act as what? A newly naturally awakened F-rank strength type. I raised my hand and gently pressed it on his shoulder. Last night, I came to you to confirm whether I had awakened. The testing instrument model was too old. Its circuits overloaded, and the results weren't saved. In the end, you judged my genetic fluctuations to be roughly F-rank. Lin Chuan stared at me. I continued. Remember that? He didn't answer right away. Lin Chuan, I'm asking you. Lin Chuan took a deep breath and finally nodded. Qin Yuan showed signs of awakening 1 month ago. Last night, he came to me for testing. The test result was F-rank strength type. The equipment was damaged due to aging and overload. All other data was lost. I shook my head. Not enough. What's not enough? It's not the result was F-rank. I stared into his eyes. It's that based on residual fluctuations, you made a preliminary judgment of F-rank. Is there a difference? Yes. If the instrument produced no official result, then no one can use a test record to refute you. Lin Chuan realized it. You even thought of that. If I don't think it through, we'll both die. At that, Lin Chuan fell silent. He knew I wasn't trying to scare him. After a moment, he asked, What do you need me to do? Help me get information. What information? The rules for the selection tournaments over the past 3 years, participant lists, awakened one files, and combat footage. You want to study your opponents? More than that. I turned my head and looked at the holographic screen that had already shut down. I need to know how the examiners test people, how they score, and how they determine sequence ranks. I also need to know who I should lose to. Lin Chuan froze. You want to lose? When it's time to lose, I have to lose. But only the top 3 can enter Central City. So I'll win my way into the top 3. Then what are you losing for? To lose the fights that shouldn't draw attention. I raised my right hand and slowly clenched it into a fist. I need everyone to think that my getting into the top 3 is luck, a sudden burst of strength, or my opponent underestimating me. They can think I have potential, but they absolutely cannot think I'm a threat. Lin Chuan stared at me for a long time. Old Qin. Yeah. The way you're saying these things right now doesn't sound much like an F rank. That's why you need to help me remember. I looked at him and said, word by word, I'm only F rank. Lin Chuan nodded heavily. Understood. One more thing. Go ahead. Before registering, I need to raise my genetic strength to C rank. Lin Chuan nearly shouted. I covered his mouth with one hand. He widened his eyes and struggled free. 1 month, to raise yourself to C rank from now. Yes. Do you know how long it normally takes awakened ones? A few years. 2 or 3 years if they're fast. 10 years if they're slow. And many people get stuck at F rank for their whole lives. That's them. Lin Chuan was so blocked by my words that he couldn't speak. After quite a while, he finally asked, how are you planning to improve? Kill mutated beasts. Where? Outside the city. You don't have permission to leave. I'm on night duty. Lin Chuan's face changed. You want to leave through the wall breach. Section 7 was rammed open last night. Before repairs are complete, they'll leave a temporary transport passage. There'll be people guarding it. Shift change at 3 in the morning. There's a 40-second gap. How do you know? I've patrolled that wall for 3 years. I let go of him and turned toward the dormitory. Lin Chuan caught up with me. Qin Yuan, wait. Anything else? You're really going out alone? More people means easier exposure. Outside isn't the training ground. Mutated beasts won't just stand there and let you hit them. I know. What if you run into something above C rank? If I can't beat it, I'll run. And if you can't outrun it? I stopped and looked back at him. Then I'll kill it. Lin Chuan was choked speechless again. I patted his shoulder. Get me the information as soon as possible. How soon? Before tonight. You think the logistics database is owned by my family? You said you had access. Having access doesn't mean I can just download whatever I want. Then find a way. Lin Chuan looked at me and suddenly let out a long sigh. What did I owe you in my last life? Maybe a genetic sequence analyzer. Don't mention that instrument. He instantly became agitated again, but afraid of attracting others. He could only lower his voice and express his dissatisfaction with me in an extremely aggressive tone. I ignored him and went straight back to the dormitory. The others had already gone back to sleep. I sat down on my lower bunk and took out a palm-sized notebook from under my pillow. I had been writing in this thing for 3 years. The first page was the date my younger sister disappeared. The pages after that were all the clues that might be related to her. I turned to a blank page and picked up a stub of pencil. First, hide my full sequence identity. Public explanation, F-rank strength type, natural awakening. Second, raise my genetic strength to C rank within 1 month. Third, participate in the selection tournament and enter the top 3. Fourth, head to Central Federal City and continue searching for clues about my younger sister. I stared at these 4 lines for several seconds, then added another sentence at the bottom. Before I possess the strength to overturn the table, I must never let anyone see my trump card. Just as I closed the notebook, my communicator vibrated. It was a message from Lin Chuan. I found the information. And one more thing. Zhao Heng has already registered. Immediately afterward, a second message popped up. He just declared that in this selection tournament, anyone who dares block his path will leave the stage lying down. I looked at those lines and smiled. Zhao Heng, E-rank enhancement type. He had stolen my ration vouchers. And he wanted to enter Central Federal City too. Very good. 1 month later, in front of all of Qing'an Fortress, I would make him understand something. Some things are easy to take, but if you want to return them, you'll have to do it on your knees. When night descended, I crouched at the entrance of the drainage culvert in Section 7 of the city wall. The searchlight was sweeping this way. 3. I tightened my grip on the alloy short staff. 2. The footsteps of patrol soldiers came from above. 1. The beam of light moved away. I immediately slipped into the culvert, braced both hands against the rusted pipe walls, and slid down the narrow iron pipe. Rust scraped open my back. It hurt, but I didn't stop. This abandoned culvert led to the rocky beach outside the city. Each patrol route left behind a 47-second blind spot. When Lin Chuan handed me the map, he only said one thing. "Qin Yuan, if you get caught, I don't know you." I smiled at the time. "Don't worry. If I really get caught, the first thing I'll say is that you put me up to it. Get lost." Now, those 47 seconds were counting down. I slid to the end, flipped over, and landed. Just as the soles of my shoes stepped onto broken stones, the searchlight on the city wall swept back over. The beam brushed past the culvert entrance. I was already pressed into the shadow beneath the wall. 3 kilometers away was an abandoned subway station. More than 10 D-rank mutated hyenas were entrenched there. I had left the city tonight to kill them. Roars of mutated beasts came from the distance. Source radiation grew stronger at night, making mutated beasts even more ferocious than during the day. A normal person would never leave the fortress at this hour. But I needed real combat. The time I killed the iron-armored lizard on the wall, I had simply lost control. Only over the past 2 days had I truly figured out the 2 sequences inside my body. When I activated the strength type, my strength could reach 12 times that of an ordinary person. When I activated the speed type, my burst speed approached 1/3 the speed of sound. But the 2 sequences couldn't operate at full power at the same time. I could only switch between them. During the switch, there would be a 0.3-second gap. That 0.3 seconds was enough for a mutated beast to tear open my throat. So I had to reduce it. I moved quickly east along the city wall. Just after crossing a stretch of ruins, a foul stench suddenly surged into my nose. I immediately stopped. 200 meters ahead, a mutated hyena was lying on the wreckage of a car, gnawing on a corpse. It raised its head. Its fluorescent green eyes locked onto me, and the bone spikes on its back rose one by one. It found me. I lifted my short staff and stepped out of the shadows. Then stop eating. Strength type, activate. Heat exploded from my heart and instantly surged into my limbs. The broken stones beneath my feet burst outward, and my entire body slammed forward. The mutated hyena opened its bloody maw and lunged straight at me. I didn't dodge. I swung the short staff. Bang! The staff smashed into its head. Its skull caved in on the spot. It crashed into the ground like a sack of rotten meat. Its limbs twitched twice, then stopped moving. I shook the blood off the staff. 1. That noise would quickly attract other things. I immediately headed for the subway station. 15 minutes later, the half-collapsed entrance appeared before my eyes. The rusted iron fence had been torn open, leaving a huge hole. Fur and dried blood hung from the opening, and heavy breathing kept coming from inside. I hid behind a broken wall and closed my eyes to listen carefully. Claws scraping against the ground, bones being crushed, and low growls. At least 12. I took out a homemade flashbang. Before setting off, Lin Chuan had patted the thing and warned me. It only works once. No kidding. What? Am I supposed to pick it back up and blow it again? What I mean is, this thing is unstable. What'll happen? It might blow up the mutated beasts, or it might blow you up first. I stared at the flashbang in my hand and couldn't help cursing him under my breath. The wording wasn't exactly polite. The main point was to make sure he, far away in the fortress, could feel my sincerity. Then I pulled out the fuse. Don't screw me over. The flashbang rolled into the entrance. 3 seconds later, white light exploded. A piercing screech instantly tore through the tunnel. The inside erupted into chaos. Come on. I tightened my grip on the short staff. The first mutated hyena slammed out of the entrance. Its eyes had been blinded by the strong light, and it shook its head while biting wildly. I met it head-on with a swing. Bang! Its lumbar spine snapped. It screamed as it flew out and crashed heavily into the wall. The second one lunged from the left. I immediately switched sequences. Strength vanished. The 0.3-second gap descended. At that exact instant, sharp claws grazed my shoulder, tearing my clothes open on the spot as blood splattered. Only missed by that much. The next moment, speed type completed its switch. The world slowed down. The hyena was still lunging forward, but I had already vanished from in front of it. One step behind it, I aimed the short staff at the back of its neck and stabbed in fiercely. Uffed. The tip of the staff lodged into its spine. The hyena's limbs went limp, and it collapsed at my feet. 2. Before I could even catch my breath, the third and fourth rushed out at the same time. Then came the fifth, and more behind them. Good. I licked the blood splashed at the corner of my mouth. Come out, all of you. Saves me the trouble of going in to find you. 5 mutated beasts surrounded me and attacked at once. Strength type. I blasted the hyena in front of me away with one swing, turned, and crashed into the arms of the one on my right. My shoulder rammed against its sternum, and I raised my hand to follow up with another strike. Bones exploded. The sound of wind approached from behind. Switch. 0.3 seconds. I stepped left in advance. Sharp claws grazed past my ear. Speed type activated, and I turned into an afterimage that plunged into the pack. The short staff stabbed out repeatedly. Throat, eye socket, behind the ear. 3 vital points. 3 sprays of blood erupted at the same time. Again, I forced myself to switch back to strength type, and the floor tiles beneath my feet split open with a roar. My entire body leaped into the air. The short staff came crashing down from above. The lunging hyena was smashed from midair into the ground, its head sinking directly into the broken stones. Faster. I had to be faster. The 2 sequences alternated wildly inside my body. Strength, speed, then strength again. The 0.3-second gap was still there, but I began to position myself in advance, started using feints to force them to attack, and started hiding the timing of each switch inside every turn and dodge. If I couldn't eliminate the gap, then I simply wouldn't let the enemy seize it. One hyena bit into my left leg. Its fangs pierced into flesh. I lowered my head and looked at it. It looked back at me too, enjoying the bite. Before it could let go, my short staff had already smashed down. First strike, bones cracked. Second strike, head shattered. I kicked the corpse aside and continued charging and killing. 3 minutes later, the entrance of the subway station fell silent. 12 corpses lay scattered across the ground. Blood flowed down along the floor tiles. I knelt on one knee and supported myself with the short staff. The staff itself was already bent, and my shoulder, forearm, and left leg were all bleeding. As the adrenaline faded, pain surged up all at once. I gritted my teeth, but the corner of my mouth rose uncontrollably. The genetic map inside me had advanced by a trace. Only a trace, but it was in the right direction. Source radiation was being devoured by my SSS-Rank genetic lock. Killing could make me stronger. I supported myself with the short staff and stood up. The outside is cleared. Next, it was time to raid their nest. The subway station was pitch black. I turned on my flashlight and quickly went deeper along the tunnel. The walls were covered in dark red fungal mats. The ground was littered with broken bones, and semi-transparent silk sacks hung from the ceiling. Larvae were wriggling inside them. I raised the short staff and smashed them one by one. If these things were left alive, they would become new D-rank mutated beasts in a few weeks. I cleared all the way to the end of the tunnel and stopped in front of a collapsed wall. Amid the rubble, a crack was exposed. It didn't look like a natural collapse. It looked more like something had smashed its way out from inside. I turned sideways and squeezed in. Behind the crack was an abandoned equipment room. The walls were twisted, the ground had bulged upward, and ghostly blue fungi grew in the corners. And embedded in the center of the room was a box. Dark silver, the size of a briefcase. No seams, no rivets, no lock. The surface of the box was covered in unfamiliar writing. With just one look, my heartbeat quickened. This thing, I didn't recognize those characters, but I had seen them before. In my genetic memory, on the walls of that burning silver-white city, the same characters were carved. I crouched down and reached out to touch the box. Buzz. A silver-white light flashed and vanished. Immediately afterward, the SSS-Rank genetic lock inside me vibrated on its own. The lid slid open silently. There were only 2 things inside. A silver syringe. A metal sheet as thin as a cicada's wing. The syringe contained half a tube of silver-white liquid, flowing slowly, as if alive. Both sides of the metal sheet were covered in tiny, dense characters. I didn't touch them rashly. Instead, I first pried the entire box out and stuffed it into my coat. This wasn't the place to study it. Besides, the smell of blood had already spread. If I didn't leave now, what came next might not be D-rank mutated beasts. I turned and retreated. Just as I rushed out of the subway station, a deep roar came from the distance. Not a hyena. That sound was lower and far more vicious. I held the metal box tightly and immediately activated speed type. I got what I came for. I'm not playing with you. The darkness rapidly retreated around me. I rushed all the way back to the city wall, then crawled into the fortress through the drainage culvert. At 3 in the morning, I returned to the dormitory, locked the door, drew the curtains, then pushed the wardrobe over to block the door. Only after finishing all that did I place the metal box on the bed. My shoulder was still bleeding, and my left leg hurt badly, but I had no time to deal with it. I opened the box and picked up the metal sheet first. A cold sensation seeped into my palm. Those tiny characters vibrated along with it. I tried injecting the power of my genetic lock into it. The next second, silver-white light exploded in my mind. Ugh! I clutched my head with both hands and slammed straight into the wall. A massive amount of information forcefully flooded into my consciousness. This wasn't reading. It was decoding. The metal sheet was responsible for storage, while the SSS-Rank genetic lock was the key. My nasal cavity suddenly grew hot. Nosebleed flowed over my lips and down to my chin. I raised a hand to wipe it away. Continue. Information was still pouring in. Soon, one term surfaced in my mind. Catalyst serum. My eyes snapped open, and I looked at that silver syringe. The metal sheet told me that it was an ancient genetic catalyst serum, capable of forcibly activating the deep sequences of a genetic lock. Endure it and break through. Fail to endure it, and the genes collapse, resulting in death on the spot. It was that simple. I picked up the syringe. No hesitation. Not because I was brave, but because I had no way back. My current strength and speed, in terms of single-sequence burst output, could already touch the threshold of C rank, but the foundation of my genes was still only at the first layer. I could rely on switching sequences to kill more than 10 D-rank mutated beasts. But what if a C rank came? What if the enemies of the Silver-White City found Earth? What would the people in the fortress do if they knew I was SSS rank? Study me? Dissect me? Or treat me as a weapon? The answer didn't matter. What mattered was that I still wasn't strong enough. I aimed the needle at the vein in my left arm. Either become stronger, the needle pierced into my skin, or die. I injected all of the silver-white liquid into my bloodstream. At first, nothing happened. There was only a chill spreading along my arm. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Boom. My entire body bounced off the bed, my back smashing heavily into the wall. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. All the muscles in my body spasmed at the same time, even locking my vocal cords. Pain. Every cell felt as if it was being torn apart, then pieced back together again. My bones released dense cracking sounds. My muscles were dismantled strand by strand. My blood vessels contracted wildly, and my heart became like an engine about to explode. Silver-white patterns crawled from my arm up to my chest, then spread to my neck and face. I fell to my knees, all 10 fingers digging into the floor. My fingernails broke. Blood flowed out. But this pain was not even a fraction of the agony inside my body. Trying to kill me? My forehead pressed against the floor, and I forced out the words. No one answered. Only the roaring of genetic chains shattering and reforming remained. I clenched my teeth and spoke again. Then come. The pain continued to assault me. My consciousness began to blur. But just as I was about to pass out, I remembered the eyes of those people beneath the city wall. Trash. He got in through connections. What right does he have to stay? I remembered the moment the iron-armored lizard lunged at me. I remembered Lin Chuan dragging me back to the dormitory and lowering his voice to warn me. Qin Yuan, don't let anyone know about your ability. What happens if they know? You'll die? I couldn't die. At least, not here. Open for me. I slammed my fist into the ground. Deep within my consciousness, the barrier blocking my genetic lock finally cracked. 1 crack. 10 cracks. Hundreds of cracks. In the end, it completely shattered. Crack. Golden light surged out from behind the barrier. My pupils suddenly dilated. A line of golden text branded itself into my consciousness. Second layer genetic lock. Perception sequence has been unlocked. The pain instantly receded. The entire world changed with it. My eyes were closed, yet I could see, everything around me. No, more clearly than seeing with my own eyes. There were 7 people upstairs. 6 were sleeping. 1 had just turned over. At the end of the corridor, the veteran on night duty was leaning against a chair and dozing off, his heartbeat slow and his breathing steady. There were 2 rats by the foot of the wall. A mutated centipede was crawling upward along a drainage pipe. Farther away, 2 patrol soldiers had just completed their handover. They were 83 meters away from me. A bit farther than that, my perception began to blur. I stood up and looked toward the wall. Even through concrete, all life had nowhere to hide. This was the 3rd sequence. Life perception. Within a radius of several dozen meters, as long as something was alive, it couldn't escape my lock-on. At the same time, the strength type and speed type sequences had also been forcibly elevated by the catalyst serum to another level. I clenched my fist. Surging power flowed between my bones and muscles, stronger than before. But before I had time to test it, a new genetic memory suddenly slammed into my mind. The silver-white city appeared again. This time I saw its sky. Scarlet. Dark. A massive light curtain covered the entire city. I froze. The sky curtain. It was exactly the same as the sky curtain that had descended upon Earth 3 years ago. In the vision, countless warriors clad in silver armor raised their heads and looked at the sky. They did not run, nor did they kneel. They merely tightened their grip on their weapons, their eyes filled with grief and anger. At the highest point of the city wall, a tall figure raised his hand and pointed toward the scarlet sky curtain. His voice pierced directly through the genetic memory and crashed into my mind. That is not a natural disaster. It is a sieve. They place sieves over one world after another, picking out the seeds that can be used. The rest are all waste. We were not destroyed. We were selected. The image shattered with a thunderous roar. I stood in the dormitory, my entire body drenched in cold sweat. Outside the window, the east had already begun to pale. I walked to the window and pulled open a crack. The scarlet sky curtain still hung above Earth. 3 years. Everyone said it was a cosmic disaster, an abnormality in source radiation, an inexplicable apocalypse. Now I knew. It wasn't. It was a screening device deliberately placed there by some kind of existence. 3% of people awakened. They were the seeds. What about the remaining 97%? Waste. I swept my perception sequence over the surroundings. Hearts were beating one after another. Patrol soldiers, logistics staff, ordinary survivors. Some were sleeping soundly. Some were coughing. Some had already gotten up, preparing to begin the day's work. They knew nothing. They didn't know that what hung over their heads wasn't a natural disaster, but a butcher's blade. They knew even less that another civilization had already gone through the same selection, and its ending had been destruction. A sieve. I stared at that scarlet sky curtain and slowly clenched my fist. You want to decide who gets sifted out? Did you ask me? No one answered. But I had already made my decision. Why did the silver-white city fall? Who exactly were the they who deployed the sky curtain? And what use were these so-called seeds? I would dig out these answers one by one. If Earth was also a chessboard, then I would overturn the board. If everyone was a chess piece, then I would kill the one playing the game. Footsteps suddenly came from outside the corridor. Someone stopped in front of my door. Knock, knock, knock. Qin Yuan, get up. It was someone from the patrol team. Morning shift assembly. If you're late, contribution points will be deducted. I quickly withdrew my perception, wiped the blood from my face, and put the metal sheet and empty syringe back into the box. I heard you. The person outside knocked twice more. What were you doing in there? I glanced at the wall I had cracked by slamming into it. Sleeping. Then why was your room making noise just now? I shoved the box into the hidden layer of my bedding and casually grabbed clean clothes to cover my wounds. Had a nightmare and fell out of bed. The outside of the door went quiet for 2 seconds. The other party muttered a few complaints under his breath, clearly impatient. Hurry up and come out. Even trash can't drag down the whole team. The footsteps moved away. I stared at the door and smiled. Trash? Very good. This identity was still useful. I changed into clean clothes, covered my wounds, and hid the bent alloy short staff under the bed. Then I pulled open the wardrobe and opened the door. People were coming and going in the corridor. No one gave me a second look. And no one knew that just now, I had opened the second layer of my genetic lock. They also wouldn't know that I had already seen clearly everyone's position, breathing, an even heartbeat. I followed the patrol team toward the city wall. Above my head, the scarlet sky curtain spread out silently. That sieve was still operating. And I, the forgotten chess piece, had awakened. Qing'an Fortress, District 3. Selection Tournament Registration Office. I stood at the very end of the line and looked up at the notice on the wall. Deadline, April 28th. 2 days left. Still enough time. More than 20 awakened ones were lined up ahead of me. They wore black combat uniforms. Some had differently colored pupils, some had swollen muscles, and some had faint genetic patterns crawling over their necks. Only I wore a patrol soldier uniform washed until it had turned pale. It was indeed conspicuous. A buzzcut man in front turned back to look at me. First, he looked at my uniform, then at my face. You're registering too? Yeah. Awakened one. Not in the roster for now. He froze for a moment, and his expression immediately changed. Then why are you in line? Several people beside him laughed too. Did this patrol soldier come to the wrong place? Ordinary people have to awaken first before registering. Standing in line won't magically get you in. Brother, if you want to watch the tournament, go buy a ticket. Don't block the way here. I didn't respond. Whether they laughed or not had nothing to do with me. I had come here only for resources. The top rankings in the selection tournament could obtain genetic enhancement serums, training privileges, and advanced rations. If the results were good enough, one could even directly enter the fortress's core combat force. I needed these things. The catalyst serum had already helped me open the second layer of my genetic lock, but from here on, every step forward would require a massive amount of resources. Relying on the meager rations of a patrol soldier, I could save until death and it still wouldn't be enough. The line continued moving forward. Just as it was almost my turn, shouting suddenly came from behind. Move aside. Everyone, stand to the side. The crowd immediately stirred. A man over 1.9 meters tall brought several lackeys with him and squeezed straight past the side of the line. Someone was about to get angry, but once he saw the man's face, he immediately shut his mouth. I recognized him too. Zhao Kai, a second-layer strength type, awakened one. His father, Zhao Mingchuan, was the deputy director of the logistics department, controlling over half of the fortress's material allocations. In Qing'an Fortress, the Zhao family couldn't be considered truly top-tier. But crushing an ordinary patrol soldier to death was far too easy for them. Zhao Kai walked to the window and slapped his registration form onto the table. Zhao Kai, second layer, strength type. The staff member behind the window hurriedly accepted the form. Young Master Zhao, your preliminary round is scheduled for. I know. Zhao Kai snatched back the registration certificate and turned to leave. Then he saw me. More accurately, he first saw the patrol soldier uniform on me. He stopped and stared at me for 2 seconds, then burst out laughing. The laugh was exaggerated. Look at this. He patted the lackey beside him and raised his hand to point at me. A patrol soldier came to participate in the Awakened Selection Tournament. Several lackeys immediately jeered along. Someone in the line also recognized me. Isn't that Qin Yuan from Section 7? The one who failed to awaken? He's registering? What kind of joke is this? A publicly recognized piece of trash dares to squeeze into a pile of awakened ones. The laughter grew louder and louder. Zhao Kai walked up to me and looked down at me. The aura of a second-layer awakened one pressed down. To ordinary people, this kind of pressure was enough to make their legs go weak. To me, it felt like nothing. The perception sequence inside me had even captured his heartbeat. 74. Stable. Relaxed. He didn't take me seriously at all. Qin Yuan, right? Zhao Kai tilted his head. My cousin Zhao mentioned you. Awakening failure, genetic channel closed, no possibility of awakening for life. He deliberately paused. That's you. That's me. I answered very simply. Zhao Kai narrowed his eyes. He probably hadn't expected me to admit it so readily. Then what are you doing standing here? Registering. You? Yes. He laughed again. Are you unable to understand human speech? Zhao Kai raised his voice, deliberately making sure everyone could hear. This is a competition for awakened ones. Not somewhere anyone can come to join the fun. You don't even have a genetic lock. What are you registering for? You want to watch a fight, but can't bear to buy a ticket? Mocking laughter rang out around us again. I looked toward the registration window. Fortress Selection Tournament Notice, Article 42. The laughter gradually stopped. Zhao Kai frowned. What? Special Application Clause. I continued. Fortress residents who have not been included in the Awakened roster, as long as they can pass an on-site physical test and prove they have reached a superhuman level, have the right to submit a special participation application. The testing standard is the D-Rank Awakened baseline. This time, the surroundings fell completely silent. Zhao Kai stared at me. You made that up? I ignored him and only looked at the staff member behind the window. Check it. The staff member pushed up his glasses and hurriedly opened the rulebook. 1 page. 2 pages. The more he flipped, the stranger his expression became. After half a minute, he finally stopped. Found it. He glanced at me, then cautiously at Zhao Kai. Article 42 does indeed state this. Non-awakened residents may submit a special application if they can reach the D-Rank physical baseline. Discussions immediately rose around us. That actually exists? How come I've never heard of it? Who would read such a thick rulebook? Zhao Kai's face darkened. Just now, in front of so many people, he had said I wasn't qualified. In the end, I had slapped the rules directly onto his face. The slap wasn't heavy, but it was loud enough. He stared at me, his gaze turning colder and colder. Fine. He took a step back and folded his arms. If the rules allow it, then of course I won't stop you. That was what he said, but he clearly had no intention of leaving. However, superhuman physique isn't proven with your mouth. He turned and gave one of his lackeys a look. That person immediately ran into the building. Zhao Kai looked back at me, the corner of his mouth slowly rising. Take the test. Sure. Don't be in such a hurry. He raised one finger. If we're testing, then let's add some stakes. The surrounding people immediately grew excited. I asked him, what do you want to bet? If you reach the D-Rank baseline, I'll apologize to you in public. Zhao Kai patted his own chest. And in this selection tournament, the Zhao family won't make trouble for you outside the arena. You can enter the competition safely and steadily. His tone changed, and his finger pointed at my uniform. But if you fail, you kneel down and call me Grandpa. Then crawl back to the city wall. And for the rest of your life, never come near awakened ones again. The crowd exploded. He's playing this big? Zhao Kai is trying to stomp him to death. Agreeing would be stupid. The D-Rank baseline isn't that easy to reach. But the Zhao family not making a move outside the arena is also a pretty heavy condition. Everyone was staring at me, waiting for me to retreat, waiting for me to admit defeat, waiting for me to leave the line in humiliation. Zhao Kai's heartbeat also quickened. 78. Excited. He had already begun enjoying the image of me kneeling. I nodded. Fine. Zhao Kai smiled. Good. The heavy sound of wheels came from inside the building. The lackey from earlier pushed out a gray-black machine. A standard state Route 7 force tester. 1 alloy target plate, 1 data screen. Simple. Direct. 1 punch to decide victory or defeat. The machine stopped in the center of the open space, and its cold blue screen lit up. The people around us voluntarily backed away, clearing an area. More and more spectators gathered. 20. 30. In the end, more than 40 people surrounded us. Zhao Kai stood to the side and lifted his chin at me. The D-Rank strength baseline is 850 kilograms. Did you hear that clearly? I heard. Hit it when you're ready. He paused, his tone filled with contempt. Don't break your own hand. Several lackeys laughed again. I walked up to the force tester and lowered my head to look at my right hand. Not long ago, this very hand had shattered the head of a C-rank iron-armored lizard with 1 punch. Now, of course, I couldn't use my full strength. 850 kilograms was the passing line. Then I would strike at around 850. The strength type sequence slowly activated inside my body. Not full power. 1%. Not enough. A little more. My muscle fibers began to tighten. My bone density increased slightly. At the same time, my perception sequence locked onto the force tester. Fist distance, striking angle, impact point. All of it was rapidly calculated in my consciousness. Too much power would expose me. Too little power wouldn't pass. Being precisely weak was more troublesome than blowing it apart with full force. Seeing that I still hadn't moved, Zhao Kai urged impatiently. What scared? I raised my right fist. Don't rush. I'm afraid that after I punch, you won't have time to apologize. The smile on Zhao Kai's face instantly turned cold. You're courting death? I ignored him. Draw back fist. Gather strength. Strike. Thud. My fist smashed into the alloy target plate. The sound wasn't loud. It even sounded somewhat ordinary. It didn't look like an awakened one striking with full force. It looked more like an ordinary person punching a sandbag. Everyone immediately looked at the data screen. The numbers jumped rapidly, then finally froze. 857 kilograms. The scene went quiet for an instant. The D-rank baseline was 850 kilograms. I was 7 kilograms over. Not much, not little, just enough to pass. The smile on Zhao Kai's lips stiffened. He stared at the screen. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. I withdrew my fist and looked at him. I passed. Zhao Kai's expression was ugly, but he didn't speak immediately. The people around us quickly reacted. Only 857. Just 7 kilograms over. He probably used every last bit of strength he had. What luck! If it had been just a little lower, he'd be kneeling today. With that level, he'll be carried out in the first round of the preliminaries anyway. Mocking laughter rose again. They quickly convinced themselves. I wasn't hiding my strength. I was just lucky. I had exhausted all my strength and happened to touch the D-rank threshold. Zhao Kai's expression eased as well. Clearly, he thought the same. 857 kilograms. For an ordinary person, it was already ridiculous. But to a second-layer awakened one, it truly wasn't worth mentioning. A casual punch from Zhao Kai would be at least 2,000 kilograms. In his eyes, even if I had crossed the threshold, I was still just a rabbit that had barely squeezed into a pack of wolves. Fine. Zhao Kai walked up to me. Count yourself as passing. I looked at him. Apologize. The surroundings fell silent again. Zhao Kai's cheek twitched. What did you say? You said it yourself just now. I stared into his eyes. If I reached the D-rank line, you'd apologize in public. His lackeys immediately surrounded me. Qin Yuan, don't refuse the face you're being given. Brother Zhao letting you register is already him showing you respect. You really think you're somebody? I didn't look at them. Zhao Kai. So many people heard you. Are you trying to go back on your word? Zhao Kai stared at me. His heartbeat rose from 78 to 90. Not fear. Anger. In front of so many people, he didn't want to lower his head. But he had proposed the bet himself. If he refused, he would only lose even more face. He clenched his back teeth, his voice squeezed out from between them. Just now, I misjudged. I raised a hand and pointed at my ear. I didn't hear you. Someone in the surroundings couldn't hold back a laugh. Zhao Kai's face instantly flushed red. The lackeys behind him had already begun cursing under their breath, their words urgent and vicious, as if they wanted to rush forward and tear me apart on the spot. But Zhao Kai raised his hand and stopped them. He took a deep breath and raised his voice. Qin Yuan, I apologize for what I said earlier. This time, everyone heard it clearly. I nodded. Accepted. The rage in Zhao Kai's eyes was almost ready to burst out. He took a step forward, leaned close to me, and lowered his voice. You'd better pray you don't run into me in the preliminaries. Why? Because once we're in the arena, I'll personally break your bones. With just you. My voice was equally low. Second layer, that's all. Zhao Kai's pupils shrank. I had already turned and walked toward the registration window. Behind me came his rapid breathing. He very much wanted to attack. But this was the registration office. There were inspectors around, a force tester, and dozens of pairs of eyes. He didn't dare. Qin Yuan. Zhao Kai called out to me. I looked back. He made a throat-slitting gesture at me. See you in the arena. Sure. I looked at him. When the time comes, don't apologize. Just surrender. Zhao Kai was so angry his face twisted. The lackeys behind him erupted collectively, pointing at me and cursing nonstop. What exactly they cursed didn't matter. In any case, each of them was using the loudest voice possible to help Zhao Kai reclaim his dignity. In the end, Zhao Kai shoved them aside. Let's go. Several people followed him away. After walking 7 or 8 meters, some of them still turned back and gestured at me. The meaning was obvious. Wait to be carried out. I withdrew my gaze. The staff member behind the window handed me a special application form. Mr. Qin Yuan, sign here. All right. I lowered my head and filled in the information. He couldn't help glancing at my right fist. Does it hurt? No. First time hitting a force tester? More or less. Not bad luck. I smiled. Indeed, not bad. He didn't know that my punch just now had only used an extremely small portion of my strength. No one noticed that my breathing hadn't become disordered. My knuckles weren't red. My wrist wasn't trembling in the slightest. 857 kilograms, to the current me, was no different from pushing open a door. Even fewer people knew that what I had originally intended to hit was 855, 2 kilograms more than planned. My control still wasn't precise enough. I finished signing and handed the form back. The staff member stamped it. Thump. Special application review passed. Qin Yuan, participant number 0719. The preliminaries begin in 3 days. Report to training ground 3 before 8 in the morning. I put away the registration certificate. Thank you. Wait. The staff member called out to me. I looked at him. He lowered his voice and reminded me. Zhao Kai holds grudges. Injuries and deaths are allowed in the competition. If you really run into him, it's best to surrender directly. I understand. Don't think it's embarrassing. Your life matters more than pride. I nodded, turned, and left. Just as I walked out of the registration office, my perception sequence suddenly caught a gaze. From the second floor, I didn't raise my head, only swept a glance with the corner of my eye. Behind a half-open window stood a woman in a white research coat. Deep chestnut hair, silver-rimmed glasses. She wasn't looking at Zhao Kai, nor was she looking at the dispersing crowd. She had been staring at the number on the force tester. 857. My steps didn't pause as I turned directly into the street. But her gaze, until I disappeared around the corner, still did not move away. Only later did I learn that her name was Su Yuqing, 22 years old, chief researcher of Qing'an Fortress, and the first person to discover that there was something wrong with that punch. After I left, she stood on the second floor for a long time. Others saw 857 and only thought it was weak. What she saw was precision. Awakened ones were not machines. Even when the same person punched continuously, their strength would fluctuate. Muscle contraction, angle, charging time, all of these would alter the final result. Someone whose true strength happened to be near D rank might hit 820. They might also hit 910. But what they shouldn't do was stop precisely at 857 on their first attempt. Only 7 kilograms above the baseline. Less than 1%. That didn't look like coincidence after exhausting all strength. It looked calculated. Su Yuqing returned to her desk and opened the fortress archives. She typed my name into the search bar. Qin Yuan. The file quickly appeared. Name, Qin Yuan. Age, 21. Identity number, QA 07-23018. Genetic test conclusion from 3 years ago. Genetic lock construction failed. Channel closed. No possibility of awakening for life. The file was only 2 thin pages. A cripple, indeed, wasn't worth wasting storage space on. But Su Yuqing didn't stop. She continued pulling up the equipment operation records from the day of the nationwide testing 3 years ago. Soon, an abnormal log appeared on the screen. April 11th. 7th testing station. GS 114 genetic testing device abnormal overload at 1723. Core sensor burned out. Data lost. The test result of the final subject that day was not fully recorded. Su Yuqing immediately pulled up the identification number. QA 07-23018. It was me. 3 years ago, the first testing device had burned out while testing me. It wasn't an ordinary malfunction. The signal input had exceeded the rated threshold and directly burned through the core sensor. It was just that no one had investigated it at the time. The staff had attributed the cause to equipment aging and had me switch to another machine for a retest. The second test result was awakening failure. And so, everyone accepted it. No one asked why the first testing device had overloaded. Even fewer wondered how someone who had truly failed to awaken could burn out a core sensor specifically designed for genetic testing. Su Yuqing stared at that log. For a long time, she didn't move. Then she saved the record into a private encrypted folder. She also took out a notebook and wrote down 4 lines. Qin Yuan. 7th testing station. GS 114. Abnormal overload. After writing them, she drew a large question mark beneath them. That day, I had only wanted to obtain qualification for the selection tournament. I didn't expect that one punch of 857 kilograms wouldn't fool everyone. Su Yuqing had set her eyes on me. Qing'an Fortress, outside the North Gate. Hunting ground. I stood on the starting platform and swept a glance inside the electromagnetic fence. 10 kilometers of wasteland. More than 300 D-rank mutated beasts. Mutated hyenas, iron-scaled lizards, blood-spined porcupines, earth-rending spiders. They had all been driven by the military into the same region. The broadcast sounded. First round, 2-hour time limit. 7 squads, 8 members per squad. D-rank mutated beasts are worth 1 point. C-rank mutated beasts are worth 10 points. The 2 squads with the lowest total scores will be eliminated. The rules were simple enough. Enter. Kill. Come back alive. I turned to look at my squad members. 2 patrol soldiers, so thin they looked almost skeletal. A warehouse manager with a crippled left leg. A communications soldier, not yet 18. A retired engineer with graying hair. Plus 2 logistics personnel. 7 ordinary people. Including me, not a single one among the 8 of us was a registered awakened one. The weapons were also very fair. Each person got an iron spear. The spear tips were so dull they couldn't even pierce paper. The communications soldier, Lin Bei, held his iron spear with hands that kept trembling. I asked him, who decided the squad assignments? The selection committee. Randomly, Lin Bei glanced at the first squad not far away and lowered his voice even further. In name, yes. I looked over too. Zhao Kai stood at the very front. Black combat uniform, alloy combat saber, arm guards, and greaves fully equipped. Behind him stood 7 people, the weakest of whom was at least mid-stage first layer. An elite squad. Then look at us. A cannon fodder squad. If this was random, I'd swallow the iron spear in my hand. Zhao Kai was speaking to his team members. Sensing my gaze, he suddenly turned his head. He smiled at me. Without making a sound, he mouthed a few words. 857. Then he pointed at me, then toward the hunting ground. His meaning was very clear. Trash, go inside and die. Before I could respond, the large screen on the viewing platform had already begun scrolling through squad information. When the first squad appeared, cheers exploded. When it was the 7th squad's turn, the audience first went quiet for a moment, then burst into laughter. 7 ordinary people plus 1, 857. What kind of lineup is that? Going in to feed the mutated beasts. Betting pool is open. 7th squad gets 0 kills, 1 to 50 odds. No one's buying this. It's free money. Laughter rose wave after wave. Lin Bei's face turned pale. The crippled warehouse manager lowered his head, gripping his iron spear tightly with both hands. The 2 logistics personnel had already begun looking toward the exit. They wanted to run. But withdrawing now meant voluntarily giving up their selection qualification. If they wanted to participate again later, who knew how long they would have to wait? I turned around. Look at me. No one moved. I raised my voice. All of you look at me. The 7 finally raised their heads. I swept my gaze over their faces. Afraid of death? Lin Bei swallowed. Afraid. Good. He froze. I continued. People who are afraid of death know how to obey orders. After we go in, when I say move, you move. When I say get down, don't stay standing. Wherever I tell you to stab, that's where you stab. The warehouse manager frowned. You really have a way? Yes. Can we win? I looked toward the first squad. Zhao Kai was enjoying the cheers. The number they break their legs to kill for won't even match the leftover scraps of what we get while sitting and waiting. The 7 of them all fell silent. Clearly, not one of them believed me. But they had no other choice. A horn suddenly sounded. The match begins. The electromagnetic gate opened. 7 squads rushed into the hunting ground at the same time. Zhao Kai charged out first. A mutated hyena lunged toward him head-on. Saber light flashed. The hyena's head flew off. Blood sprayed across half his body. First squad 1 point. The viewing platform instantly boiled over. The 2nd and 3rd squads also began splitting up to hunt. Only we didn't rush forward. I led the 7 people and turned directly southeast. Lin Bei followed behind me, growing more panicked the farther we went. Captain, up ahead is the Bloodthorn Marsh. I know. There are at least 3 mutated beast packs there. I know that too. Then we're still going? I stopped and looked back at him. You don't want to go? No, I just think. He looked at the dull spear in his hand, his expression almost crying. If we go in there, there might not even be bones left. Don't worry. I continued forward. The ones who won't have bones left today won't be us. A few minutes later, the Bloodthorn Marsh appeared ahead. I raised my hand. Stop. The 7 immediately crouched down. I bent down, pressed my hand to the ground, and activated perception sequence. Life signals instantly spread out inside my consciousness. To the front left, 15 mutated hyenas. On the western slope, 7 blood-spined porcupines. Deep in the thorn bushes, 3 earth-rending spiders. 25 total. 3 groups. They were squeezed into a low-lying area less than 200 square meters wide, guarding against each other but not fighting. Lin Bei lay beside me, his voice trembling. Why don't we change places? Why? There are too many. Too many is good. He clearly didn't understand. Just then, a segment of genetic memory surfaced from deep within my consciousness. Pack splitting. Compress the living space of multiple beast groups, then use blood to stimulate territorial instinct, causing them to slaughter one another. There was only one key point. Find the weakest and least protected member of the group. Injure it. Let it return. I opened my eyes. Golden patterns flashed deep within my pupils. Lin Bei. Here. Open the squad channel. It's already open. I pressed down on my communicator. Next, do whatever I say. Don't ask questions. Don't move recklessly. And don't try to be a hero. The warehouse manager asked. Then what are we supposed to do? I looked toward the mutated beasts in the marsh. Wait for them to finish killing each other. I led the squad around to the downwind side and advanced along the thorns. 25 meters. 20 meters. 15 meters. Everyone lay flat. A smaller hyena had fallen to the outskirts of the pack. Its fur was messy, and its abdomen was sunken. Several times it tried to approach the center of the pack, only to be bitten back by the other hyenas. That was the one. I picked up a stone. Lin Bei widened his eyes. Captain, what are you doing? Lighting the fire. What fire? I had already flung my arm. Whoosh. The stone passed through the thorns and struck the hyena's hind leg with precision. Flesh burst open. Blood surged out. The hyena let out a miserable scream and dragged its injured leg toward the center of the pack. Lin Bei's face turned green. It's over. Shut up. The injured hyena rushed into the pack. The smell of blood spread with it. The alpha raised its head and locked onto it. The next second, the alpha pounced. One bite clamped onto its neck. The injured hyena struggled desperately. A second hyena pounced. Then a third began tearing into it as well. More and more blood flowed. On the western slope, the 7 blood-spined porcupines simultaneously raised their spikes. They thought the hyena pack was approaching their territory. Warning cries sounded. The hyena pack immediately turned their heads. The two sides confronted each other. Lin Bei held his breath. They're going to fight. Still missing a little. I picked up a second stone. Aimed at the alpha. Threw. Bang. The stone struck the alpha's abdomen. It turned in pain, facing the blood-spined porcupines exactly. The blood-spined porcupines were stimulated, and their backs suddenly contracted. Dense blood spikes shot out instantly. Puff, puff, puff. 3 hyenas were pierced through on the spot. One spike also pierced the alpha's left eye. It let out a shrill roar and led the entire hyena pack charging toward the slope. The two beast groups collided. Blood splattered everywhere. And deep in the thorns, the 3 earth-rending spiders were also startled by the smell of blood. The ground suddenly bulged. Boom. One earth-rending spider burst from the soil, its limbs piercing through a hyena's abdomen and lifting it high into the air. A second one drilled out and rammed into the porcupine group. The third followed right after. The entire marsh instantly exploded. Hyenas tore and bit. Porcupines released spikes. Earth-rending spiders killed anything alive. Screams connected into one continuous sound. Lin Bei was dumbfounded. The warehouse manager was dumbfounded too. The 2 logistics personnel simply lay on the ground with mouths wide enough to fit a fist. This actually works? Don't talk. I sat down. You'll alert them. Lin Bei stiffly turned his head to look at me. We're really sitting and waiting. What else? I laid the iron spear across my legs. You want to go down and mediate? He immediately shut his mouth. 15 minutes later, the commotion gradually faded. A large area of bloodthorn bushes had been flattened. The ground was full of severed limbs. The alpha had been pierced through the abdomen by blood spikes and still had 1 breath left. 5 of the 7 porcupines were dead. The remaining 2 had exhausted their spikes and could barely stand. Of the 3 earth-rending spiders, 1 was dead and 2 were seriously injured. I stood up. It's our turn. The 7 followed me into the marsh. A hyena with 2 broken legs suddenly raised its head and opened its mouth at Lin Bei. Lin Bei was so frightened he stepped back. Don't retreat. I stepped on the hyena's head. Spear tip behind the ear. Stab it in. But it's still moving. If you don't stab it, it'll bite you. Lin Bei gritted his teeth, gripped the spear with both hands, and stabbed down fiercely. Uffed. The hyena twitched a few times and stopped moving. The counter jumped. 7 squad, 1 point. Lin Bei stared at the corpse, panting heavily. I killed it. Yes. I patted his shoulder. Next one. The others also moved. For those with broken legs, stab the throat. For those with torn abdomens, pierce the eye socket. For anything still capable of resisting, I first broke its spine, then handed it to them to finish off. 10 minutes later, the counter broke 20. 20 minutes later, the entire marsh had been cleared. I glanced at my wristband. 7 squad, 25 points. Lin Bei stared at the number, even his voice changing. We're first. For now. The warehouse manager finally smiled. That should be enough to advance, right? Not enough. I looked toward the depths of the thorns. Inside my perception sequence, there were still 6 life signals. 2 hidden underground. For squeezed into a cave. All D rank. I lifted my iron spear. Continue. For the next hour, we didn't engage in direct slaughter. I was responsible for finding mutated beasts. Then I used scent, terrain, and territorial conflict to make them fight each other. In the second beast group, they tore 4 of one another apart. We finished off 3. At the third location, there were only 2 iron-scaled lizards. I used a stone to smash one of their eggs, then smeared the egg fluid onto the other. The 2 lizards began fighting to the death on the spot. By this point, Lin Bei had completely stopped asking questions. Whatever I told him to do, he did. In the final 10 minutes of the match, we stopped. Not because there was nothing left to kill, because there was no need. 31 points. Enough. On the return trip, the 7 people walked behind me. When they came in, their faces had held only fear. Now, the way they looked at me had changed. Lin Bei leaned closer and asked quietly, Captain, what did you do before? Patrol soldier. I know. Then why ask? What kind of patrol soldier knows all this? Now there is one. The horn sounded again. Match over. The 7 squads returned to the starting platform one after another. 3rd squad, 14 points. 5th squad, 11 points. 4th squad, 16 points. 6th squad, 9 points. 2nd squad, 18 points. The faces of the 6th and 5th squad members had already gone pale. Only the 1st and 7th squad's results had yet to be announced. Zhao Kai was the last to walk onto the platform. He was covered in blood, chunks of flesh still hanging from his alloy combat saber. 2 people in his squad were injured, one of whom had been carried back. But his face was full of smiles. The large screen lit up. 1st squad, 23 points. The viewing platform instantly boiled over. 23. 5 points higher than 2nd place. As expected of Zhao Kai raised his combat saber high, enjoying the cheers. Then he looked toward us. His gaze swept over the 7 ordinary people behind me. None of us were injured. Our clothes were also very clean. The only places stained with blood were the tips of our iron spears. Zhao Kai's smile became even more obvious. He probably thought we had found a place to hide for 2 hours. He raised his chin at me. Qin Yuan, where's your score? I didn't answer. The large screen had already refreshed. 7th squad, 31 points. The cheers came to an abrupt stop. The entire viewing platform suddenly lost all sound. Zhao Kai was still smiling, but his eyes were now fixed firmly on the screen. He stared for a full 3 seconds. 31. No one answered. He turned toward the referee's seats. The equipment malfunctioned. The referee spoke coldly. The hunting ground uses a triple-layer life monitoring system. Kill data is recorded in real time. There is no statistical error. 7th squad, 31 points. Once these words came out, the scene became even quieter. Someone couldn't help asking, how did they kill them? 7 ordinary people plus an 857 killed 31. 1st squad only got 23. That's impossible. The people who had mocked us earlier all shut their mouths now. The person who opened the betting pool had gone deathly pale. Clearly, someone really had bet on the 7th squad, and it hadn't been on 0 kills. Zhao Kai turned and rushed toward me. You cheated. I stopped. Evidence. There's no way you killed 31. Because you can't do it, it's impossible? Zhao Kai's face instantly flushed red. His squad members behind him also surrounded us. The first squad had fought bloody battles for 2 hours. Someone broke a hand. Someone had been carried back. And in the end, they were 8 points behind us. No one would be able to accept that. Lin Bei, behind me, suddenly spoke. We killed 31. His voice trembled slightly. But he didn't retreat. Zhao Kai abruptly looked at him. Do you have the right to speak here? Lin Bei's face went pale. I took a step forward and blocked his line of sight. What are you trying to do? Zhao Kai tightened his grip on his combat saber. What do you think? Attacking a participating squad after the match ends results in score cancellation and a lifetime ban. I stared at him. Do it. I'll stand here and let you cut me. Zhao Kai's arm began trembling. Not from fear. From being so stifled, he was about to explode. The audience was watching. The referees were watching. He didn't dare swing this blade. I walked past him. I didn't stop. Nor did I look at him again. On registration day, he had let me know the difference between 857 and second layer. Now, covered in blood, he had fought desperately for 2 hours. 23. We sat and waited. 31. The gap was indeed quite large. Only, the one being stepped on wasn't me. After walking a few steps, Lin Bei looked back at Zhao Kai. Captain, his face is green. Don't look. Why? Bad luck. Someone in the 7th squad couldn't hold back a laugh. Immediately afterward, everyone laughed. Zhao Kai stood where he was, his face turning from blue to white, then from white to red. The lackeys behind him began shouting curses loudly, trying to recover some dignity for him. No one paid them any attention, and no one laughed at us again. Only later did I learn that during that hunt, Zhao Kai wasn't the only one watching me. At the highest point of the viewing platform, Su Yuqing had been holding a thermal imager the entire time. During the 3 seconds after I entered the hunting ground and pressed my hand to the ground, she recorded a set of abnormal data. The temperature of my fingertips had risen by 12 degrees. When a first layer awakened one fully released their genetic lock, their surface temperature difference usually didn't exceed 3 degrees. Second layer, no more than 6 degrees. The highest record for third layer was only 9.7 degrees. And I had merely placed my hand on the ground. 12 degrees. Su Yuqing wrote a sentence in her notebook. Suspected ancient genetic memory. Immediately afterward, an encrypted notice from the fortress higher-ups was sent to her. The rules for the second round had been changed. Squad confrontation. Not hunting beasts. Hunting people. As we left the hunting ground, Lin Bei chased after me. Captain, can I still be on your squad in the second round? I don't know. If I can, I'll listen to everything you say. The warehouse manager also came over. Me too. The remaining people spoke up one after another. Count me in. We'll do whatever the captain tells us to. Even if we keep using iron spears, I'll follow. Before the first round began, they thought I would lead them to their deaths. After the first round ended, they began fearing they wouldn't be able to keep up with me. Relationships were that simple. I let them survive, and I let them win. So they were willing to trust me. Just as I was about to leave, my wristband suddenly vibrated. A message from an unknown sender popped up. Second round, squads will be reassigned. All advancing participants, please gather at Training Ground 3 at 8 a.m. the day after tomorrow. I stared at the words squads will be reassigned. If Zhao Kai dared to tamper with the first round, then he would certainly dare to keep doing so in the second. This matter wasn't over yet. However, at that time, I didn't know that he had no intention of waiting until the second round. Less than half an hour after the first round ended, Zhao Kai returned to his dormitory and smashed the only alloy cup in the room. Later, after the Zhao family fell, I saw the records from that day in their encrypted files. The number 31 nearly drove Zhao Kai insane. He couldn't accept failure. Even more, he couldn't accept that when I passed by him, I hadn't even looked at him. That evening, the Zhao family sent out 3 people. Zhao Yong, third layer enhancement type, Awaken 1, genetic ability, Iron Bones, and 2 killers of the same level. 3 third layers. Their target was only one person. Me. The Zhao family's order to them was also very simple. If anyone threatens the Zhao family's quota, handle it yourselves. Translated, that meant kill. The time they chose was 11 at night. The place was the abandoned training ground in the Eastern District, where I often trained. There were no surveillance cameras there. No patrols. The nearest sentry post was 400 meters away. Zhao Kai said to Zhao Yong. He goes there every day from 11 to 1. He's only D rank. 857 kilograms. 3 third layers killing him shouldn't lead to another accident, right? Zhao Yong replied with only 2 words. It won't. At the same time, in the data analysis room, Su Yuqing still hadn't left. 3 files were placed in front of her. The first was my testing report from 3 years ago. Genetic channel closed. Awakening failed. The second was the thermal imaging data from the hunting ground. Fingertips heated by 12 degrees. The third was the waveforms of the 137 known human genetic locks. She input my energy data into the system. Soon, the result appeared. Match failed. Highest similarity, less than 12%. In other words, my genetic lock did not belong to any known classification. Su Yuqing continued writing in her notebook. Genetic lock type unknown. Beyond current detection range. Threat level cannot be assessed. She circled the word threat, then turned off the lights and left. In the corridor, she brushed past Zhao Yong. Zhao Yong had his head lowered and walked very quickly. There was a faint rusty smell on his body. Su Yuqing stopped for half a second, but she didn't look back. 11:10 at night. I stood in the center of the abandoned training ground in the Eastern District. I had just finished the final set of strength training. Perception sequence expanded. Within 200 meters, there were no patrol soldiers. No ordinary people. Very quiet. Originally, I had planned to test continuous switching between strength type and speed type. After the catalyst, the intensity of both sequences had increased. More importantly, the switching gap had already been compressed from 0.3 seconds to 0.21 seconds. Still not enough. I needed to keep practicing. I raised my fist and activated strength type. Then I punched. Boom. The air cracked with an explosive roar. My fist stopped in front of an abandoned alloy pillar. Only 1 centimeter away. The pillar wasn't struck, but the wind from my punch shook it until it hummed. I withdrew my fist. Switched. Speed type. My body vanished from where I stood. The next second, I appeared 20 meters away. 0.21 seconds. Still too slow. I was just about to continue when my perception sequence suddenly caught 3 life signals. 1 to the west, 1 to the north, 1 to the south. Distance, 120 meters. They were approaching at the same time. Steady heartbeats. Synchronized footsteps. No talking. They weren't passing by. They were surrounding me. I didn't move. I kept rotating my wrist. Soon, footsteps came from 3 directions. 3 figures passed through the gaps in the wall and entered the training field. Dark gray combat suits. Black masks. No insignias. No weapons. But a faint layer of gene energy covered the surface of each of their bodies. Third tier. The 3 of them stopped 15 meters away, forming a triangular formation around me. They sealed off 3 directions. Each could support the others. No matter which one I charged at, the other 2 could flank me from the sides. A standard encirclement kill formation. I looked at the scarred man directly ahead. Did Zhao Kai send you? No one answered. I asked again. Only 3 from the Zhao family. Still no answer. They weren't here to negotiate, and I hadn't expected them to talk. Zhao Yong, directly in front of me, bent slightly and began gathering strength. The alloy grid plates beneath his feet creaked. The man to the north raised both hands, and his skin rapidly turned gray-black. The breathing of the man to the south quickened, and the muscles in his legs swelled dramatically. 1 iron bone type, 1 skin hardening type, 1 speed type. Their roles were clear. Frontal suppression, side interception, and finally, the speed type would deliver the killing blow. 3 third-tier fighters to kill 1 D rank. They really thought highly of me. I raised my right fist and flexed my knuckles. Crack, crack, crack. Zhao Yong finally spoke. Don't resist. You'll die more easily. I laughed. Do you all like saying this kind of nonsense before killing someone? Zhao Yong's gaze darkened. Move. The alloy grid plate beneath his feet caved in instantly. His whole body charged straight at me like an out-of-control armored vehicle. At the same time, the hardening type on the north side sealed my right. The speed type on the south side disappeared into the darkness, rushing straight for the back of my neck. All 3 attacked at once. No probing. Every move was lethal. I stood where I was. Perception sequence fully activated. Zhao Yong's heartbeat. Muscle contractions. Bone force output. The landing points and attack directions of the other 2 were also all reflected in my mind. Every movement was clear. Too clear. I turned sideways. Zhao Yong's fist blasted past the tip of my nose. The wind from his punch cut open my skin. Blood seeped out. His pupils contracted. Clearly, he hadn't expected me to dodge. Too slow. I raised my hand and grabbed his wrist. Strength type, activate. Boom. A stream of heat surged into my right arm. My 5 fingers tightened instantly. Zhao Yong's iron bones let out a piercing, grinding sound. His expression changed. You're not D-rank. You only figured that out now? I twisted my waist and swung my arm. Zhao Yong's body, weighing over 100 kilograms, was directly lifted by me and smashed head-on into the hardening type assassin on the right. Bang! The two collided and flew out at the same time. But the speed type had already circled behind me. His hand blade stabbed straight toward my cervical spine. Fast. Very fast. At least in the eyes of ordinary people. But in my perception, his movement was slow, as if rehearsed in advance. Switch. A 0.21 second blank descended. His fingertips had already touched the back of my neck. 1 more inch forward, and he could sever my cervical vertebrae. Speed type, activate. I disappeared from in front of him. His hand blade missed instantly. Impossible. That was the first true thing they said tonight. I appeared beside him and clasped the back of his head with my backhand. What's impossible about it? I raised my knee. Bang. His face slammed into my knee. His mask shattered. His nose bridge collapsed on the spot. His entire body tumbled and flew more than 10 meters away before crashing heavily into the alloy grid plates. 3 people. 1 exchange. All down. Zhao Yong was the first to get back up. The way he looked at me had changed. Earlier, it had been indifference. Now, it was vigilance. And a trace of fear he couldn't hide. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The intel was wrong. I walked toward him. Wrong how? You're at least 3rd tier. Guess again. Zhao Yong didn't continue. He suddenly kicked up a broken alloy plate. The metal plate spun toward my face. At the same time, the other 2 rose from the left and right, launching another pincer attack. Still 3 people working together. But this time, they wanted to flee. Zhao Yong's attack was a feint. The speed type turned and rushed toward the southern gap. The hardening type was also retreating northward. I smiled. When you came, you blocked every road. And now you want to run? Perception sequence locked onto all 3 of them. Speed type at full power. I crossed over the flying metal plate and instantly caught up with the speed type assassin. He had just reached the gap in the wall when I was already standing in front of him. He stopped abruptly. Sorry. I raised my fist. This road is closed. Zhao Yong moved first. The alloy grid plate beneath his feet suddenly caved in. 15 meters. He crossed it in half a second. A gray-white metallic sheen covered his right fist as he punched straight toward my face. The other 2 attacked from both sides at the same time. 1 aimed for my lower back. 1 blocked my retreat. 3 third-tier awakeners, cooperating with great familiarity. If I had truly been D-rank, that 1 move would have killed me. Unfortunately, I wasn't. Perception sequence fully activated. Zhao Yong's heartbeat, breathing, and muscle force sequence all entered my mind. Before he even threw his punch, I already knew where it would land. I tilted my head slightly. The edge of his fist brushed past my ear. The gust lifted my hair. Zhao Yong's pupils shrank sharply. You dodged. Was that difficult? I stepped forward, slipping into the blind spot of his attack. Speed type. My figure flashed, and I seized his wrist. Switch. Strength type. Heat instantly poured into my right arm, and my 5 fingers tightened. Zhao Yong's iron bone gene lock automatically protected him. A gray-white metal layer quickly wrapped around his wrist, trying to block my strength. I continued increasing my force. 10%. 20%. Crack. His wrist bone dislocated on the spot. Zhao Yong grunted, and his left fist immediately smashed toward my temple. Ruthless enough. Fast enough, too. I merely tilted my head. His fist missed again. His gaze finally changed. The first time was surprise. The second time was no longer that. The sound of wind erupted behind me at the same moment. The other 2 had arrived. 1 drove a knee toward my lower back. 1 struck an elbow toward the back of my neck. Both were killing moves. I released Zhao Yong and dropped downward. The knee swept over my head. The elbow strike followed right after. Bang! Their attacks collided with each other, and both groaned. I slipped out from between them and stood steady again. The first encirclement kill was over. None of the 3 had touched me. Zhao Yong clutched his dislocated wrist and stared fixedly at me. You awakened a perception-type gene lock. Keep guessing. You deliberately hid your strength? You're here to kill me. Why so many questions? The scar at the corner of Zhao Yong's eye twitched. Attack! The three of them lunged again. This time, they no longer tested me. Iron fists, knee strikes, elbow strikes, whip kicks. Attacks pressed down from three directions at once. The wind from their punches exploded continuously, shaking the alloy floor with loud clangs. I stood among them, constantly moving. One step, sideways, lower head, turned shoulder. Their fists brushed past me and missed. Every time, they were only a little short. But that little distance was something they could never catch up to. Zhao Yong grew more and more anxious as he fought. Don't let him open distance. Seal the right. Attack low. The other two immediately changed formation. One swept with his leg. One lunged forward. Zhao Yong's iron fist went straight for my chest. I took half a step to the right. The sweep missed. I turned. The one lunging forward rushed past me. Then I raised my hand. Zhao Yong's fist skimmed past my palm. Too slow. His eyes reddened, and his iron bone gene lock erupted with full force. The metal layer rapidly thickened. Let's see how long you can dodge. He began punching madly. Every punch could blast through steel plates. Every punch missed by a little. 10 punches, 20 punches, 30 punches. His breathing grew more and more ragged. My breathing did not change. I didn't need to be much faster than him. Just a hair faster. A single hair was enough. The assassin on the left suddenly changed moves and kicked toward my knee. I withdrew my leg in advance. The assassin on the right immediately pounced, grabbing toward my waist. I turned and let him pass. In that instant, my back was exposed to Zhao Yong. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Die! His iron bone fist blasted out at full power. I didn't dodge. I turned, raised my hand. Slap! His fist landed steadily in my palm. A shockwave exploded outward, sending dust beneath our feet, spreading in all directions. Zhao Yong's body froze violently. He stared at his own fist, then at me. You? This is third tier. My hand didn't shake. Not even my fingers moved. Instead, Zhao Yong's right arm began to go numb. He tried to pull his fist back. I tightened my grip. Sorry. Too late. I yanked hard. Zhao Yong lost his balance, and his whole body crashed toward me. Knee up. Bang! My knee drove viciously into his abdomen. His iron bone defense immediately concentrated toward his stomach, but it was still one step too slow. Zhao Yong bent forward, his mouth opening as a breath of stale air burst out. I released his fist. My right elbow rose. Kneel. Boom. The elbow strike smashed into the back of his neck and shoulder. His iron bone layer had no time to shift. Zhao Yong was like a man crushed by a mountain, his entire body slamming face first into the floor. The alloy grid plates collapsed with a crash. Blood poured from his mouth and nose. His limbs twitched. His consciousness rapidly blurred. From catching his fist to taking him down, less than 2 seconds had passed. The other two stopped. They looked at Zhao Yong, then at me. No one charged again. Why aren't you fighting? I walked toward them. The two retreated at the same time. When they came, they had sealed off my retreat. Now, they were looking for their own. The intel was wrong. One of them growled. Retreat. The two turned and ran. One rushed toward the northern gap. One sprinted toward the southern wall. When third-tier awakeners fled at full strength, they really weren't slow. But I didn't chase. I stood where I was and watched them climb out of the training field, disappearing into the darkness. Zhao Yong was still sprawled on the ground, gasping. His mask had already tilted aside, revealing half his face. A scar ran from his left eyebrow all the way to the right side of his chin. I recognized that face. A member of the Zhao family. So it really was Zhao Kai. Zhao Yong's finger twitched, as if he wanted to speak. I didn't give him the chance. Go back and tell Zhao Kai. If he wants to kill me, have him come personally. I walked to the wall and picked up my water bottle. Unscrewed it. Took a sip. Zhao Yong struggled to raise his head, his voice hoarse. Why didn't you kill me? I glanced at him. Because a living man delivers a message faster than a corpse. Also, I pointed at his scarred face. Next time we meet, I won't hold back. After that, I turned and left. My footsteps faded farther and farther away. The training field fell silent again. Zhao Yong lay on the cold alloy floor, gasping heavily. At the time, I didn't know that 420 meters away, a high-powered bioenergy detector had recorded the entire battle. The one recording it was Su Yuqing. She stood on the roof of the third residential building, her white research coat snapping loudly in the night wind. From the moment the three masked men entered the training field, she had been monitoring. It wasn't a coincidence. After the first round of the hunt ended, she had begun tracking my training data. Tonight, she had originally only wanted to record the changes in my strength. She hadn't expected to run into an assassination. After I left, she immediately pulled up the combat data. The first item, peak speed, upper limit of second-tier speed type. That number wasn't exaggerated. What truly changed her expression were the next three items. Reaction delay, 0.014 seconds. The average data for third-tier awakeners was 0.08 seconds. The highest record for human fourth-tier fighters was only 0.03 seconds. My reaction speed had already broken through the existing physiological limits of humanity. Su Yuqing stared at the data and spoke in a low voice. Not a pure speed type. Speed types strengthen muscles, bones, and explosive force. It would not pull neural reaction speed to this degree, unless I also had perception ability. She continued reading. At the instant I caught Zhao Yang's iron bone fist, my strength output exceeded the upper limit of second-tier strength type by 47%. That meant my strength had at least reached third tier. But throughout the entire battle, what I used most of the time was clearly speed ability. One person, strength type, speed type, perception type. All three directions exceeded third-tier standards. The final data item still showed the same result. Gene lock energy waveform, unclassifiable. Among the 137 types of gene locks recorded by humanity, not one matched mine. Su Yuqing took off her glasses and rubbed the space between her brows. For the first time, she realized that the current awakener system simply could not explain one person. Qin Yuan, how many gene sequences do you have? She put her glasses back on and took out a black communicator. The communicator had no brand mark, only a silver shield-shaped emblem. She pressed the encryption key and entered a 16-digit authentication code. The screen lit up immediately. First Class Fortress, Central Staff Department. Alpha, 7 encrypted channel. Identity, authentication passed. Field Observer S0917, Su Yuqing. The communication connected. Speak. A cold voice came from the communicator. Su Yuqing packaged and uploaded all combat data. Field Observer S0917 calling Central. An abnormal individual has been discovered during the Qingyan Fortress selection. Target name, Qin Yuan. She paused and looked toward the now-empty training field. Temporary code name, Origin. The target's gene lock type is unknown. Energy waveform unclassifiable. In the three dimensions of strength, speed, and perception, all exceed third-tier evaluation standards. Preliminary judgment. She stared at the 0.014-second reaction data. The target's combat strength exceeds the upper limit of the current evaluation system. I recommend immediately raising the attention level. The other side of the communicator was silent for a long time. Then, a deep voice sounded. Receive. From this moment on, target origin is listed on Central's Special Observation List. S0917. Your operational authority is raised to B2. Further orders will be issued within 24 hours. The communication ended. Su Yuqing put away the equipment and stood at the edge of the rooftop. Her gaze fell in the direction I had left. Qin Yuan, what exactly are you? That night, she sent my information into the first-class fortress. And after I returned to the dormitory, the first thing I did was inspect the room. No one had entered. The metal box was still hidden in the layer beneath the bed. I closed the door, took off my shirt, and looked into the mirror. There was a shallow blood mark beside my ear. It had been left by Zhao Yang's first punch. I raised my hand and wiped away the blood. 3 third-tier fighters. Still not enough. After tonight's battle, I had already figured out the improvement after catalysis. With strength type fully activated, I could steadily suppress a third-tier iron bone. Without fully releasing speed type, I could still avoid a 3-man encirclement. The perception sequence was the key. As long as they entered my perception range, their bodies would expose their intentions before they attacked. Accelerating heartbeat, tightening muscles, shifting center of gravity. These signals couldn't deceive anyone. But my weakness was still there. Sequence switching required 0.21 seconds. Tonight's enemies weren't strong enough to seize that opening. But what if it were a fourth tier? Or even higher? That 0.21 seconds would be enough for me to die once. I sat cross-legged and closed my eyes. Continue training. Strength. Close. Switch. Speed. Close. Switch again. Perception remained active the entire time. Once. 10 times. Hundreds of times. By the time dawn was almost breaking, I had reduced the switching interval to 0.19 seconds. Only 0.02 seconds less. Still not enough. But I had time. At least, that was what I thought then. Zhao Yong, however, was not so lucky. He was carried back to the Zhao residence. Later, from the Zhao family's interrogation records, I saw everything that happened that night. 2 assassins supported him on the left and right, entering the Zhao residence through the secret passage at the rear gate. The tips of his feet dragged across the ground, leaving 2 white marks behind. At least 3 ribs were dislocated. The back of his neck was blackened. His iron bone defense had almost been shattered by my elbow strike. The gray-white metallic sheen flickered on his skin, as if it could go out at any moment. The steward, Old Chun, came forward. When he saw him, his face turned pale. "Master Zhao, what happened to you?" Zhao Yong squeezed out 2 words through his teeth. "Shut up. Call the young master." "Yes, yes." Old Chun turned and ran. The 2 assassins placed Zhao Yong on a bench in the side hall. One of them removed his mask, his voice trembling. "Brother Yong, should we call a doctor?" "No. But your ribs. What happened tonight cannot see the light." Zhao Yong raised his eyes. "Whoever dares say one extra word, I'll kill them first." The 2 immediately shut their mouths. Zhao Yong leaned against the back of the bench, the images from earlier flashing repeatedly through his mind. I caught his fist. Pulled him over. Knee strike. Elbow strike. Down in 2 seconds. He had fought more than 50 life-and-death matches in the underground black market. He had killed C-rank mutated beasts. He had also fought a 4th-tier awakener before. In that battle, he lost. But at least he lasted 40 seconds. In front of me, he only lasted 2. Urgent footsteps soon came from outside the corridor. The door was pushed open. Zhao Kai, wearing a sleeping robe, rushed into the side hall. He first looked at Zhao Yong, then at the other 2. "What happened?" Zhao Yong opened his eyes. "We lost." Zhao Kai seemed not to understand and stood where he was. "How many went?" 3. "How did you fight?" "Triangular encirclement." "First strike, ambush." All 3 attacked at the same time. Zhao Kai stared hard at him. And then, Zhao Yong was silent for 2 seconds. Then my first punch missed. He only tilted his head. After that, it happened quickly. So quickly that my iron bone defense couldn't shift in time. Zhao Kai looked at the other 2. "What about you?" One of them lowered his head. "After Brother Yong went down, we retreated." "Retreated?" "We couldn't beat him." The side hall fell silent for a few seconds. Zhao Kai picked up the teacup on the table and smashed it against the wall. Crash. Fragments flew everywhere. "Useless trash." He erupted. This wasn't simple scolding. He hurled the humiliation of losing the first round, the suffocating shame of apologizing at the registration office, and the fear from tonight all onto Zhao Yong and the others. "How many years has the Zhao family raised you? How many enhancement drugs have we given you? How many resources have we spent? You 3 third-tier fighters couldn't kill 1 patrol soldier with a score of 857 kilograms." Zhao Yong did not dodge. Tea and fragments landed on him, but he didn't even blink. Only after Zhao Kai finished cursing did he speak. "He is not D-rank." Zhao Kai suddenly stopped. "What did you say?" "He is not an ordinary 3rd-tier either." Zhao Yong raised his head. "Young master, I've fought for half my life. I can tell who can be fought and who cannot be touched." Zhao Kai sneered. "So you're saying he's 4th-tier?" "I don't know. You can't even tell what level he is?" "I can't." Zhao Yong answered directly. "I only know that I smashed my full-strength punch into his palm. His hand didn't move, didn't shake. Not even 1 finger trembled." The sneer on Zhao Kai's face disappeared. "Your iron bone fist. Full strength." "He caught it head-on?" "Not resisted." Zhao Yong corrected him. "He caught it easily." The side hall became silent again. Zhao Kai stood there, the anger on his face fading little by little. Fear surfaced. But soon, that fear turned into something even more vicious. He suddenly laughed. "Good. Very good." Zhao Yong braced himself against the chair, trying to rise. "Young master, we can't continue." Zhao Kai looked at him. You're afraid? Yes. Zhao Yong did not deny it. That man held back. If he had wanted to kill us tonight, none of the three of us would have returned. The corner of Zhao Kai's eye twitched. So, stop. Zhao Yong lowered his voice. While this hasn't grown too big yet, don't provoke him again. Zhao Kai walked up to him and asked word by word. At the registration office, I apologized to him in public. On the hunting ground, I brought an elite team and was stepped on by those pieces of trash under him. Now, he has crippled 3 third-tier members of the Zhao family. And you want me to stop? Young master, face can be recovered. Zhao Yong lowered his voice. You only have one life. The smile on Zhao Kai's face twisted completely. It's exactly because I only have one life that I can't let him live. He turned and walked to the desk, taking out the Zhao family's encrypted communicator from the drawer. Zhao Yong's expression changed. You want to contact the main family? Uncle Zhao, you were right. Zhao Kai pressed the encryption key. 3 third-tier fighters aren't enough. Then we'll replace them with a group, that is. Young master. Shut up. Zhao Kai turned back, his gaze cold and sinister. Qin Yuan already knows the Zhao family made the move. If he isn't killed tonight, he will retaliate sooner or later. When he grows up, do you think he'll let me go? Let the Zhao family go. Zhao Yong opened his mouth, but he couldn't refute him. Zhao Kai connected the communication. Connect me to the main residence. A voice came from the other end of the communicator. Young master, it is 2 in the morning. I know. The family head has already retired. Wake him. Zhao Kai stared out the window. Tell the family head that a variable has appeared in the Qing'an fortress arrangement. A variable sufficient to threaten the entire Zhao family. The communicator was silent for a moment. Please wait. Zhao Kai put down the communicator. Zhao Yong leaned against the bench, looking at his back, his expression growing darker. Things had changed. This was no longer a spoiled young master setting traps for the sake of face. What Zhao Kai wanted to mobilize was the entire Zhao family. A few minutes later, the communicator vibrated. Only 2 words appeared on the screen. Connected. Zhao Kai picked up the communicator. An old, deep voice came from within. Kai'er, why are you contacting me this late? What happened? Zhao Kai looked at the heavily injured Zhao Yong, the corners of his mouth slowly lifting. Family head. I found someone. He has hidden himself very deeply, and he has already become enemies with the Zhao family. The other side was silent for an instant. What strength? Zhao Kai looked at Zhao Yong. Zhao Yong closed his eyes and did not answer. So Zhao Kai gave the answer himself. Uncertain. But 3 third-tier fighters working together couldn't last 2 seconds in front of him. This time, the silence on the other end lasted even longer. Then that old voice turned cold. Name. Qin Yuan. Identity. Patrol soldier of the 7th section wall. Selection participant. Background. No background. Zhao Kai tightened his grip on the communicator. A person everyone thought was trash. The person on the other side asked in a low voice. Does he know the Zhao family made the move? He should. Then he is not a threat. Zhao Kai froze. What do you mean? There was not a trace of fluctuation in the other voice. He knows the Zhao family's secret and is not under Zhao family control. This kind of person is not called a threat. He is called a dead man. Zhao Kai smiled. This was exactly the sentence he had been waiting for. But Zhao Yong suddenly opened his eyes and, enduring the sharp pain, spoke. Family head, you cannot underestimate him. Qin Yuan is not an ordinary awakener. He has at least 3 abilities: strength, speed, and perception. And tonight, he didn't use his full power at all. The person in the communicator interrupted him. Zhao Yong, your subordinate is here. You lost. Zhao Yong's lips moved. Yes. The fear of the defeated magnifies the enemy. The old voice was extremely cold. Go back and recover. The rest does not require your involvement. Zhao Yong still wanted to speak, but the communication had already been cut off. Zhao Kai put down the communicator and looked down at him. Did you hear that? This time, we won't need you. The scar on Zhao Yong's face twitched slightly. Who will the family head send? Zhao Kai looked toward the searchlights outside the window, his smile growing colder and colder. People capable of killing 4th-tier fighters. And more than one. He turned around. Doesn't Qin Yuan like hiding? Then we'll force him to reveal every trump card he has. And kill him all at once. It wasn't until the next morning that I realized things were starting to spiral out of control. At that time, I had just finished patrol. Lin Bei ran toward me from a distance, his face deathly pale. Captain, something happened. I stopped. Slow down. Talk. The list for the second round is out. He handed me the terminal. The screen displayed the new match rules. Squad confrontation. Weapons permitted. Serious injuries permitted. Under special circumstances, death permitted. And in the column for my opponent, there were only 4 words. Zhao Family Direct Unit. Lin Bei's voice trembled. This isn't a match at all. I turned off the screen and handed it back to him. I know. And you're still going? I'm going. They'll kill you. I raised my head and looked toward the third training field. The perception sequence slowly unfolded. One powerful life aura after another had already entered the arena in advance. 3rd tier, 4th tier, and one even stronger. This time, the Zhao family really had paid a heavy price. Lin Bei grabbed my arm. Captain, forfeit. There's still time to withdraw. I looked at him. Yesterday, 3 people went to the training field to kill me. Lin Bei froze. 3 third-tier fighters. His hand loosened at once. How did you survive? They weren't strong enough. I flexed the 5 fingers of my right hand. So today, the Zhao family brought stronger ones. And you're still going? Of course. I walked down along the city wall. They've delivered people right in front of me. Saves me the trouble of finding them one by one. The broadcast above my head sounded. The second round of the selection is about to begin. All participants, proceed immediately to the third training field. My steps did not stop. The Zhao family wanted to use the second round to kill me. Perfect. I also wanted to use the second round to make everyone understand one thing. 857 kilograms was only the number I wanted them to see. It was not my limit. The data wasn't wrong either. The only explanation was this. My gene lock simply did not exist within humanity's current classification system. Su Yuqing stacked the files neatly and placed them into a dark gray encrypted bag. A strip of silver thermosensitive adhesive was applied to the seal. If anyone opened it without authorization, all the documents inside would automatically burn to ash within 3 seconds. Then she took out the black communicator, entered the authentication code. The screen lit up. First Class Fortress, Central Staff Department. Alpha, 7 encrypted channel. Identity, authentication passed. Field Observer S-0917, Su Yuqing. The communication connected. Speak. Su Yuqing sat up straight. S-0917 calling Central. Submitting the second special report on target origin. She uploaded the data package. First, when the target encountered an encirclement kill by 3 third-tier awakeners, he controlled his speed near the upper limit of 2nd tier throughout the entire battle. Judgment, active disguise. Second, there is a high possibility that the target possesses at least 2 awakening sequences operating in parallel. During the operation of the speed sequence, his strength output still exceeded the upper limit of 2nd tier by 47%. This phenomenon matches the multi-sequence parallel operation hypothesis, but exceeds all known cases. She paused. Third, the target's gene lock energy waveform cannot be classified. 3 independent samples failed to match any of the 137 known types. Waveform purity reached 99.7%. Equipment failure and environmental interference have been ruled out. There was no sound from the other side of the communicator. Su Yuqing continued. Revised assessment. The upper limit of target origin's actual ability is immeasurable. Recommendation. Raise attention level from A rank to S rank. Recommendation. Dispatch a senior field officer for intervention. S-0917 report complete. 15 seconds later, the other side finally responded. S-0917 report received. Central's immediate orders are as follows. First, target origin's attention level will remain at A rank. Su Yuqing frowned. Why? The other party did not explain. Second, no senior field officer will be dispatched at this stage. The target is currently participating in the Qing'an Fortress selection. Any external intervention may arouse suspicion. Su Yuqing tightened her grip on the communicator. Then what should I do? Third, your operational authority is raised to B1. Primary mission adjusted. Conduct close-range, continuous observation of target origin. Su Yuqing fell silent. The other side emphasized again. Establish contact. Integrate into the target's daily activity circle. Obtain first-hand data. Do not expose your true identity. Do not alert the target. All intelligence concerning the target is listed at the highest confidentiality level. You are not to disclose it to any third party within Qing'an Fortress. This is an order. The communication ended. Su Yuqing held the communicator and did not move for a long time. Close-range observation. Establish contact. And she couldn't let me discover her. Images from the training field surfaced in her mind. I stood among 3 third-tier fighters. Dodged fists. Caught attacks. Counterattacked. Took Xiao Yong down in 2 seconds. Su Yuqing said quietly, "You can even detect tracking. How am I supposed to get close to you?" No one answered. She put away the communicator and walked to the window. Dawn had just arrived over Qing'an Fortress. Sentries were changing shifts. Transport vehicles slowly drove along the main road. Ordinary people had already lined up, waiting for the day's food ration. Everything was as usual, but from the moment Central's order was issued, her mission had completely changed. She was no longer merely studying me. She had to enter my life. Su Yuqing took out an identity card. In the photo, she wore her hair in a ponytail, silver-framed glasses, and a white research coat. The identity field read, Qing'an Fortress Logistics Data Analysis Department, Intern Researcher. Intern Researcher. Of course it was fake. Her true identity was a field observer stationed in Qing'an by the first-class fortress. She looked at that card and mocked herself in a low voice. Close-range contact with a target whose upper limit cannot be assessed. This promotion in authority sure is worth it. She straightened her collar and pushed open the door of the data analysis room. At the end of the corridor, a notice had just been posted. Awakener Selection Second Round. Squad Confrontation Match. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., Training Hall Draw and Grouping. Su Yuqing stopped. She stared at the words Squad Confrontation for several seconds. Then she took out her communicator and dialed the selection committee's internal channel. This is Su Yuqing. The second round requires an additional battlefield data analyst. The person on the other end was clearly stunned. Researcher Su, the list has already been finalized. Add 1. That doesn't follow procedure. I will submit authorization from the research department. But Su Yuqing pushed up her glasses. The second round permits casualties. If abnormal combat data appears, which one of you will take responsibility? The other side immediately went silent. A few seconds later, that person changed their tone. Understood. We'll add 1 accompanying observer slot for you. Which team should I be assigned to? Su Yuqing looked at the notice. Qin Yuan's team. At 6 o'clock the next morning, the wake-up whistle sounded on time. I opened my eyes. The first thing I felt was a slight ache in my shoulder. The recoil from the elbow strike I used on Xiao Yong last night had been stronger than I'd expected. The iron bone gene lock really was hard. If I hadn't seized the opening when his defense was shifting, that elbow strike might not have been enough to take him down directly. But it wasn't a big problem. I lifted the thin blanket, got dressed, folded the blanket, washed up. Every movement was the same as it had been for the past 3 years. Lin Chuan was crouching beside his bed, tying his shoes. When he saw me get down, he grinned. Brother Yuan, how'd you sleep last night? Not bad. I picked up the water bottle and took a sip. Lin Chuan leaned over and lowered his voice. Something seems to have happened in the East District last night. My hand didn't stop screwing the bottle cap. What happened? Old Zhang was on night duty. He heard noises from the abandoned training field the whole time. Like people fighting. And then, he brought people over, but they didn't see anything. Lin Chuan gestured with his hands. They only saw a few pits in the ground. One of them was even human-shaped. I tightened the bottle cap. Stray dogs fighting. Lin Chuan froze. What kind of dog can smash an alloy floor into a human shape? A mutated dog. Even then, it shouldn't be human-shaped. I looked at him. Go ask the dog. The corner of Lin Chuan's mouth twitched. Brother Yuan, why do I feel like your way of talking today is kind of annoying? Your imagination. I stuffed the water bottle back into the cabinet. Assemble. Let's go. Lin Chuan quickly caught up. Wait for me. We followed the patrol team out of the dormitory. Collected equipment. Signed in. Assigned routes. Inspect the 3rd to 7th sections of the city wall. Clean the drainage outlets. Record traces of mutated beast activity. Report once every 2 hours. The same as every day for the past 3 years. Boring. Repetitive. Safe. That was exactly what I wanted. Last night, I had just crippled members of the Zhao family. Today, I would continue being a patrol soldier with an 857-kilogram score. If there was garbage to sweep, I'd sweep it. If there was filth to clear, I'd clear it. The more they looked down on me, the safer I was. I walked slightly behind the middle of the team, not leading, not covering the rear. My pace matched everyone else's. My gaze swept over the surroundings, but never lingered too long. Whatever a qualified bottom-level patrol soldier should notice, that was all I noticed. No more. No less. When we reached the 5th section of the city wall, the captain raised his hand. Rest in place. Check your equipment. We continue in 5 minutes. I crouched down, pretending to adjust my shoelaces. But the perception sequence had already unfolded. 30 meters. 50 meters. 100 meters. No hostility. No abnormal heartbeats. No one secretly following. But I didn't relax. Last night, someone had been watching me outside the training field. About 420 meters away. The rooftop of the 3rd residential building in the East District. That person had no awakener energy fluctuations, but carried high-powered electronic equipment. During the first round of the hunt, I had also sensed infrared auxiliary light from high up in the spectator stands. 2 locations. The same equipment signature. Most likely, the same person. Su Yuqing, the researcher who had been fixated on that 857-kilogram number. Lin Chuan walked over and kicked the tip of my shoe. What are you spacing out for? Thinking. Thinking about the second round. Kind of. He crouched beside me. I heard the second round has been changed to squad confrontation. Zhao Kai will definitely target you again. I know. You're not nervous? I finished tying my shoes and stood up. Would being nervous help? No. Then why be nervous? Lin Chuan held it in for a while, then muttered quietly. You really have a big heart. It wasn't that I had a big heart. It was that Zhao Kai wasn't big enough. What I truly needed to worry about was Su Yuqing. How much had she seen? Had she recorded the energy fluctuations when I switched sequences? And who would she hand the data to? The research department? The selection committee? Or someone higher up? I raised my head and looked toward the data analysis building in the distance. There was no answer. Then I wouldn't move for now. Everything as usual. The patrol continued. At 10 in the morning, a mutated rat suddenly burst out of a drainage outlet. Its body was nearly the size of an adult hound. Red eyes, sharp teeth, gray, rigid hair standing on end. E-rank mutated beast. The captain drew his alloy blade. Wang Hai, Chen Guang, flank it from left and right. 2 first-tier awakeners rushed forward. One sealed its path. One swung his blade. The mutated rat darted left and right, almost squeezing out from between them. Lin Chuan watched nervously from the side. Can they kill it? They can. You're that sure? It's only E-rank. Then why are they taking so long? Their center of gravity is too scattered. Their blade recovery is slow too. Lin Chuan turned to look at me. You understand this stuff? I immediately shut my mouth. I'd said too much. He stepped closer. Brother Yuan, you've been really strange lately. What's strange? Before, whenever we ran into an E-rank mutated rat, you hid even farther away than I did. And now you're standing here giving commentary? I looked at him for 2 seconds, then took a step back, hiding behind him. Is this better? Lin Chuan looked speechless. You're really hiding? Didn't you tell me to hide? I didn't. A scream came from ahead. Not human. The alloy blade had cut into the mutated rat's neck. The 2 awakeners finally killed it. The captain wiped the blood from his blade. Continue forward. At 2 in the afternoon, patrol ended. I returned to the dormitory, took a shower, and changed into clean clothes. Lin Chuan collapsed onto his bed and fell asleep. Soon, snoring filled the room. I lay on my bed and closed my eyes, replaying last night's battle. My speed output control had been acceptable. I hadn't exceeded the 2nd-tier upper limit. The perception sequence had not been fully exposed. The only problem was that when I caught Zhao Yang's punch, I had used too much strength. He was heavier than I had estimated. The impact of his iron-bone fist was also stronger. In order to stabilize my palm, I had been forced to increase the strength-type output. At that instant, energy overflow definitely occurred. If Su Yuqing really had been monitoring, she must have seen it. However, she would most likely misjudge it as multi-sequence parallel operation. She wouldn't think that my sequences could switch at high speed. That was a good thing. Wrong information was also a kind of protection. I was just about to continue compressing the switching interval when my consciousness suddenly sank. No warning. No pain. The ceiling in front of me vanished instantly. I was dragged into darkness. My body was still lying on the bed. My heartbeat was normal. My breathing had not changed either. But my vision no longer belonged here. The darkness split open. A burning sky pressed down. I saw a completely unfamiliar land. The sky was dark purple. A blood-red sun hung on the horizon, several times larger than Earth's sun. Beneath the sun stood a city. A silver-white city. Its walls pierced into the clouds. Countless runes covered the metal walls, exactly the same as the box I had brought back from the subway station. Those runes were glowing, like breathing, and also like calling for help. Inside the city, countless figures charged onto the walls. They were taller than humans, wearing silver-gray armor and holding unfamiliar weapons. But what truly made me freeze was their eyes. Golden. Deep within each person's pupils, golden patterns burned. Exactly the same as mine when I activated my gene lock. A silver-armored warrior passed in front of me. He suddenly stopped, turned his head, and looked over. It was clearly only a fragment of genetic memory, but in that instant, I felt as if he had truly seen me. His lips moved slightly. There was no sound, but I understood that sentence. You finally came. I suddenly wanted to approach him. Who are you? He did not answer. Outside the city wall, the darkness began to surge. That was not storm cloud, nor was it a tide. It was mutated beasts. Dense masses of black monsters covered the land, so numerous that no end could be seen. They had no fixed forms. Some had dozens of limbs. Some were covered in mouths. Some looked like clumps of black flesh constantly splitting apart. They charged toward the silver-white city, layer upon layer. The ones in front were trampled to pieces, and those behind continued forward. The silver-armored warriors on the wall raised their hands at the same time. A tall warrior lifted his weapon and roared. Defend origin. Golden light erupted. Countless beams shot from the palms of the silver-armored warriors. Boom. The first row of dark creatures was instantly vaporized. Golden flames swept across the earth, twisting the air with heat, shaking the entire sky. But the darkness did not retreat. More monsters surged forward, stepping over corpses. Above the silver-white city, a scarlet curtain of sky slowly opened. A gigantic black shadow squeezed out from behind that curtain. Only one hand. A hand so huge it blocked the sun. The silver-armored warriors raised their heads. No one retreated. The one who had looked at me earlier took off his helmet. His face resembled a human's, but in his eyes burned dazzling golden light. He looked at me again. Find it. I stared at him. Find what? The origin core. Where is it? The black giant hand pressed down toward the city. The walls began to crack. The silver-armored warrior reached out toward me. His voice stopped abruptly. The scene shattered, like a mirror blasted apart. In every fragment was a different ending. Collapsed city walls, burning streets, silver-armored warriors devoured by darkness, and a person covered in blood, carrying something as he rushed underground. I wanted to see clearly what he was holding, but all the fragments went dark at the same time. Wait. I suddenly opened my eyes and sat up. The dormitory. Ceiling. White walls. Lin Chuan was still snoring. Outside the window, there was no purple sky, nor that blood-red sun. Only the gray fog that never dispersed over Qing'an Fortress. My back was already soaked. My right hand trembled slightly. Not from fear. It was because too much information had been shoved into me by that memory. The silver-white city. Golden-eyed warriors. The dark beast tide. The scarlet curtain of sky. The origin core. And that sentence. You finally came. That person had been waiting for me. No. The entire silver-white city had been waiting for someone. For who knew how many years. And in the end, the one they waited for was me. Lin Chuan rolled over and asked sleepily, Brother Yuan, what were you shouting just now? I controlled my breathing. A dream. What did you dream about? I lay back down. Someone owed me something. How much? I don't know. Then why were you so worked up? He muttered a few words, then fell asleep again. I pulled up the thin blanket and closed my eyes. On the surface, nothing had happened. But beneath the blanket, my right hand was already clenched tight. The silver-white city and my gene lock came from the same place. Those golden-eyed warriors also possessed powers similar to mine. They might not be my kind, but I had definitely inherited something from them. Memory. Power. mission, even hatred. As for the origin core, I thought of the dark silver metal box hidden in the layer beneath my bed. The box, the injector, the metal plate, they were only relics. The true core should still be somewhere else. Possibly on Earth. Possibly hidden behind the scarlet curtain of sky. With my eyes closed, I spoke quietly. You want me to find it? At least tell me where to look. Of course, no one answered. Only in the depths of my consciousness, that burning silver-white city flashed again. Immediately after, a coordinate-like silver symbol branded itself into my mind. I opened my eyes. The direction pointed to by that symbol was not outside the city. It was inside Qing'an Fortress, and very close to me. I immediately unfolded the perception sequence. Through the dormitory, past the corridor, sweeping underground, an extremely faint silver-white pulse responded to me from deep beneath the fortress. Once, then again, like a heartbeat. I sat on the bed and stared at the floor beneath my feet. Something from the silver-white city was hidden underground in Qing'an Fortress. There were only 18 hours left before the second round of the selection began. The Zhao family wanted to kill me. Su Yuqing was monitoring me. The underground ruins were calling to me. All the trouble had collided at once. Lin Chuan rolled over again. Brother Yuan. Can you stop sitting there? It's kinda scary. I lay back down again. Go to sleep. There's a match tomorrow. I know. I looked at the ceiling and slowly closed my eyes. Tomorrow, I would deal with the Zhao family first. After that, I would go underground and take a look. I wanted to know exactly what that dead silver-white city had left me. Only later did I learn that while I was testing my new ability outside the city, the Zhao family was also preparing a new killing move. The Zhao family mansion was located on the northern highland. There were only 3 buildings there in total. The Fortress Command Headquarters, the Central Materials Warehouse, and the Zhao family mansion. Location was power. In Qing'an Fortress, the military ranked first, and the Zhao family dared to sit second. That morning, Zhao Kai stood outside the main hall for a full 15 minutes. There were clearly chairs placed on both sides of the corridor, but he didn't dare sit. Because the person inside was his grandfather, the head of the Zhao family, Zhao Pingyuan, 63 years old, 5th-tier awakener. Also the person in Qing'an Fortress who hated others challenging his authority the most. The redwood door finally opened. The one who opened it was an old man with graying hair. Uncle Zhou. On the surface, he was merely Zhao Pingyuan's attendant. In secret, he was a 4th-tier awakener. His ability was classified, and his codename had only one word. Shadow. Young master. Uncle Zhou stepped aside. The family head asks you to enter. Zhao Kai straightened his collar and walked into the main hall. It was very empty inside. A long table, 2 chairs, a tea set, a landscape painting from before the apocalypse hung on the wall. In the painting, green mountains and clear waters stretched beautifully. Outside the window, however, there was only gray fog and city walls. Zhao Pingyuan sat at the end of the table. A dark gray long robe, short graying hair, hands folded together. His entire person was like a blade sheathed in its scabbard. Zhao Kai walked to 3 steps in front of the table. Family head. Zhao Pingyuan didn't tell him to sit, nor did he speak immediately. Only after 1 minute did he raise his eyes. You called the main residence at 2 in the morning. You said a major variable had appeared in Qing'an Fortress. Zhao Kai nodded. Yes. Where is Zhao Yong? Heavily injured. 3 ribs dislocated, contusion to the back of the neck, large-scale shattering of the iron bone defensive layer. It will take at least 10 days for him to recover. Zhao Pingyuan lifted his teacup. 3 third-tier fighters. Ambushing a D-rank with a score of 857 kilograms. Completely wiped out. Zhao Kai's face twitched. He is not D-rank. Did I ask you that? His voice was not loud, but Zhao Kai immediately closed his mouth. Zhao Pingyuan slowly took a sip of tea. What I'm asking is, who allowed you to send Zhao Yong and the others to assassinate a selection participant? You gave the order. Zhao Kai answered through gritted teeth. If someone threatens the Zhao family's slots, they may be dealt with independently. Dealt with independently means using your brain. Zhao Pingyuan put down the teacup. It does not mean acting like some street thug and bringing people to gang up on him. Zhao Kai lowered his head. I thought 3 third-tier fighters would be enough. Which is why you're stupid. Zhao Pingyuan said it calmly. But that sentence was harsher than slapping Zhao Kai in public. Zhao Kai's fingers immediately clenched. Zhao Pingyuan continued asking. Do you know how many surveillance points they passed when they came back? Zhao Kai didn't answer. 7. Every intersection in the northern district has infrared surveillance. After Zhao Yong's iron bone defense shattered, it released metallic particles outward. As long as the security department retrieves the detection records, they can trace the trail all the way to the Zhao family's rear gate. Zhao Kai's face turned pale. I'll have people handle it. Too late. Zhao Pingyuan looked at him. The selection is supervised by Central of the first-class fortress. Assassinating a selection participant during the competition, once this matter is exposed, they won't be investigating you. They'll be investigating the entire Zhao family. He raised a finger and tapped the table. The Zhao family's 30 years of arrangements. The Zhao family's relationship with the military. All of the Zhao family's people in the materials system. You gambled all of it on an assassination with no preparation. And the most humiliating part is, you didn't even kill him. Zhao Kai almost ground his teeth to pieces. But he didn't dare refute him. The main hall was silent for a long time. Just as Zhao Kai thought he was about to be driven out, Zhao Pingyuan suddenly changed the subject. Did Zhao Yong really say that person crushed 3 third-tier fighters? Zhao Kai abruptly raised his head. Yes. He caught a full-power iron bone punch with his bare hand. That was what Zhao Yong personally said. Zhao Kai immediately stepped forward half a step. The other party's hand didn't move or shake. He didn't forcibly withstand it. He completely suppressed it. Zhao Pingyuan narrowed his eyes. Interesting. Zhao Kai's heart stirred. He knew his grandfather too well. Zhao Pingyuan wasn't afraid of danger. He was only afraid that the danger had no value. And I had already shown him value. Family head, what you mean is, the second round is squad confrontation. Zhao Pingyuan asked. How many Zhao family members are participating? Including me, 7 in total. 3 second tier, 4 first tier. Not enough. Zhao Pingyuan directly gave his conclusion. Transfer 2 people from the main residence. Zhao Kai's breathing stopped. The seed candidates from the main residence. Yes. But weren't they prepared for the Fengming fortress selection? Zhao Pingyuan raised his eyes. Are you questioning me? No. Zhao Kai immediately lowered his head. I just didn't expect the family head to use them for Qin Yuan. Didn't you say he could crush third-tier fighters? Zhao Pingyuan lifted his teacup. Then on the arena, crush him back openly. Wild joy flashed in Zhao Kai's eyes. What level are they? Zhao Pingyuan did not answer. He merely looked at him through the rising steam from the teacup. That look was already enough. Those 2 people were absolutely not merely ordinary third-tier fighters. Remember, Zhao Pingyuan's voice suddenly turned cold. This time, no more petty tricks. On the arena, a win is a win, and a loss is a loss. When the Zhao family wants to kill someone, we do not need to sneak around. Zhao Kai lowered his head. Understood. He had already begun imagining the scene of me having my limbs broken and being stepped on in the arena. This time, countless people would be watching. The apology at the registration office. The 31 points on the hunting ground. The humiliation of Zhao Yong being crippled. He would reclaim it all at once. Go. Zhao Pingyuan waved his hand. Let Zhao Yong recover. In the second round, you will personally lead the team. Yes. Zhao Kai turned and walked toward the door. He had only taken 2 steps when Zhao Pingyuan called him again. Zhao Kai. Does the family head have further instructions? Zhao Pingyuan looked at him. If that person truly has the strength you described, don't kill him. Zhao Kai froze. You mean, break his hands and feet, cripple his ability to resist, then bring him back. I want him alive. The smile on Zhao Kai's face faded slightly. Why? Zhao Pingyuan's eyes instantly turned cold. Zhao Kai immediately realized he had asked too much. But Zhao Pingyuan still gave him an answer. The Zhao family lacks people. We will always lack people who can fight. Zhao Kai lowered his head. Understood. The door closed behind him. Uncle Zhou walked out from the shadows of the main hall. Family head, are you truly transferring those 2 here? Transfer them. But they are prepared for next year's A-rank ruin exploration. An unknown awakener who can suppress a third-tier iron bone barehanded is more valuable than a ruin. Uncle Zhou hesitated for a moment. What if he refuses to submit? Zhao Pingyuan's fingertip tapped on the table. Once, twice, 3 times. Beat him until he submits. And if he still refuses? Then take him apart and see. Zhao Pingyuan lifted his tea his eyes showing not the slightest ripple. I also want to know what exactly his gene lock is. That night, I did not go to the East District training field again. The Zhao family wasn't the main point. Su Yuqing was. During the first round of the hunt, she was watching me. During the battle at the training field, she was watching me too. Continuing to train in the same place would be equivalent to voluntarily standing beneath her instruments. So I changed my route. At 11 at night, I put on a dark jacket and climbed out from the rear window of the dormitory. After landing, I unfolded the perception sequence. 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters. No one noticed me. I moved close to the Western District warehouse cluster, then passed through the maintenance passage of the 4th sewage treatment station. 2 patrol soldiers happened to pass ahead. This damn weather is getting colder. Bear with it. Shift change is still half an hour away. Their footsteps gradually approached. I didn't retreat. I directly climbed onto the pipe, gripped the steel beam with both hands, and pressed my body into the shadow above. The 2 patrol soldiers walked beneath my feet. Neither of them looked up. After they left, I landed silently and continued forward. 14 minutes later, I arrived at the 12th section of the city wall. This was the oldest area along the entire wall. 3 years ago, a source radiation storm had torn through the wall. Though it was later repaired, it left behind an obvious height gap. I stepped on the cracks and climbed to the top of the wall, crouching behind the battlement. The searchlight was turning in this direction. The light on the 12th section had a malfunction. Every 23 seconds, it would jam for 4 seconds. I stared at the beam of light. 3. The searchlight approached. 2. The beam swept past the front. 1. The lamp had jammed. I flipped over the battlement and dropped along the outer side of the wall. 4 seconds later, the searchlight resumed moving. But I had already entered the darkness outside the city. Night wind struck my face. Fishy. Cold. Mutated beasts roared constantly in the distance. I didn't move immediately. Tonight, I was going to test something new. Multi-sequence parallel operation. In the genetic memory from the day, the golden-eyed warriors of the Silver-White City were not using single abilities. They locked onto enemies at the same time, moved at the same time, released power at the same time. No switching, no blank. If the origin gene lock originally supported multi-sequence parallel operation, then the way I had been using it before was completely wrong. Only activating one sequence at a time? That was like using a warship as a wooden raft. I took a deep breath. Perception sequence, activate. Speed sequence, activate. Operate simultaneously. Boom. 2 streams of gene energy surged out from my heart at the same time. One charged into my nerves and senses. The other poured into my muscles and bones. The intense pain did not appear, nor did my gene chain collapse. Instead, my vision instantly became clear. Too clear. The wind had direction. Dust had trajectories. The texture of every piece of gravel beneath my feet seemed magnified before my eyes. 300 meters away, a mutated rat hid behind a broken wall. Its heartbeat was very fast. It was gnawing on something. 700 meters away, 17 life signals were squeezed together in an underground nest. 3 of those signals were clearly stronger than the others. Even farther away, a large mutated beast was moving. Each step produced a slight tremor in the ground. A massive amount of information surged in at once. I had originally thought my brain would be overloaded, but it wasn't. All the information automatically layered itself. No threat, low threat, potential threat, direct threat, distance, speed, attack range, possible movement direction. All of it was organized instantly. This wasn't me actively calculating. It was the origin gene lock processing it on its own. I stood in place and couldn't help laughing. So that's how it is. From the very beginning, Origin had not been designed for single-sequence operation. Its underlying architecture was parallel. Before, I had kept practicing switching between strength and speed, agonizing over those fractions of a second of blankness. Now, it seemed I simply hadn't found the correct method of use. Tonight's objectives were twofold. Test dual-sequence synchronization, and kill 2 D-rank mutated beasts along the way. The first one was 600 meters away, under a collapsed overpass. The perception sequence locked onto it. About 2 meters long. Slow heart rate. Body curled up. Thick armor layer on its back. Thinner abdomen. D-rank mutated lizard. Currently dormant. I lowered my body. Speed sequence, full power. The gravel beneath my feet burst apart. I charged out 100 meters in less than 1.5 seconds. But even at high speed, everything around me remained clear. The wind direction did not become chaotic. My perception did not blur. The mutated lizard's heartbeat also did not disappear from my lock-on. When I was 10 meters away, it woke up. Its pupils contracted. Its hind legs exerted force. Its body prepared to roll left. It wanted to aim the thickest armor on its back toward me. Before it could finish the movement, I had already cut in from the right. Too slow. The alloy short staff thrust out. The tip of the staff accurately stabbed between the third and fourth ribs on the right side of its abdomen. Armor pierced. Flesh entered. Organs penetrated. All in one motion. The mutated lizard let out a short roar, and its tail whipped toward me. The instant the muscles in its waist tightened, the perception sequence delivered the attack trajectory into my consciousness. I turned sideways. Its steel whip-like tail swept past my waist, only tearing off one button. I pulled out the short staff and retreated 2 steps. The mutated lizard rolled and struggled. Dark green blood continuously poured from its wound. It tried to stand, but its limbs no longer obeyed. A dozen seconds later, it lay on the ground, only the tip of its tail still twitching. I didn't finish it off. There was no need. I closed my eyes and checked the condition of my body. Heartbeat, 112. Breathing, slightly fast. Dual sequence load, around 40%. No collapse. No conflict. And no switching blank. Perception handled locking on. Speed handled execution. There was almost no delay between the 2 sequences. First one, I shook the blood off the short staff and turned toward the northeast. Second one, 400 meters away, a D-rank mutated boar was rooting through corpses in the ruins. This time, I wanted to test whether the perception sequence could maintain precision during high-speed movement. Speed sequence, 80%. I charged out again. The darkness rapidly receded. But every movement of the mutated boar remained firmly locked, lowering its head, eating, lifting its leg, breathing. Its ears suddenly turned. It had noticed me. 300 meters, 200 meters, 100 meters. The mutated boar suddenly raised its head. Its body was 3 times the size of an ordinary wild boar, and its shoulder height was nearly 1.5 meters. 2 tusks curved forward, and the bristles along its back stood upright one by one. White steam sprayed from its nostrils. It did not flee. Its 4 hooves scraped the ground. Then it charged head-on. Rumble. The ground shook. A body weighing several hundred kilograms sprinting at full speed was enough to overturn a small armored vehicle. I didn't slow down either. We closed in directly. 50 meters. 20 meters. 5 meters. Just as we were about to collide, the perception sequence suddenly gave me the result. Tusk trajectory biased left. 17 centimeters of space on the right. Enough. I turned sideways. My body shifted less than 20 centimeters horizontally. The tusk brushed past my left arm, tearing the fabric but not touching my skin. At the same time, my left hand pressed against its head, borrowing its force. Flip. I swept over the boar's head. The alloy short staff stabbed downward in a reverse grip. Puff. The staff tip pierced into the back of its neck, driving down along the gap in its spine. The mutated boar's limbs instantly stiffened, but the inertia of its charge remained. It slid 7 or 8 meters forward, its hooves plowing deep grooves into the ground, before finally crashing into the rubble. I flipped and landed, one knee slightly bent. No wobbling. No panting either. Behind me, the mutated boar was still twitching. Its spine had already been severed. Second one. I walked over and pulled out the short staff, wiping the blood off against the stiff bristles on its back. Total time spent, less than 4 minutes. 2 D-rank beasts. One killed by opening the weakness in its abdomen. One by severing the spine. I had not used strength type, nor had I used my true maximum speed. Only speed and perception. Yet the battle had been more than 1 level easier than before. This was not simple ability stacking. The perception sequence let me control the battlefield. The speed sequence let me turn that control into results. One was responsible for seeing. The other was responsible for doing. With both running in parallel, I had no blind spots. I lowered my head and looked at the back of my hand. Beneath my skin, golden light slowly flowed. This was the true way to use the origin gene lock. And right now, I could only run 2 sequences in parallel. In the gene map, There were still more regions that had not lit up. Strength, recovery, defense, manipulation, and even unknown sequences I had yet to understand. What if they were all activated? What if they all operated in parallel? I thought of the golden-eyed warriors in my memory. They stood on the silver-white city wall, locking onto thousands upon thousands of enemies at the same time, then releasing golden light in an instant. The number of sequences they could operate simultaneously was definitely more than 2. How far did you all go? The silver-white city in my mind flashed once. No answer. Only burning city walls. And that black, giant hand pressing down from behind the scarlet curtain of sky. I withdrew my thoughts and prepared to return to the fortress. But the moment I turned, the perception sequence suddenly issued a warning. Northwest, 800 meters. 3 life signals were rapidly approaching. Not mutated beasts. Humans. Moving very fast. At least 3rd tier. And they had not come from the fortress. They had already been in the wasteland. I stopped. There are others? The 3 life signals slowed at the same time. Clearly, they had also discovered the mutated beast corpses here. A man's voice came from the distance. The manner of death is wrong. Another person answered. The wound is too precise. Doesn't look like beasts killing each other. The person just left. No. A 3rd person suddenly spoke. They haven't left yet. As soon as the words fell, the 3 of them changed direction at the same time. Straight toward me. I tightened my grip on the alloy short staff. The perception sequence fully spread out their movement trajectories. 700 meters. 500 meters. 300 meters. They came quickly. I stood in place without moving. A dozen seconds later, 3 figures appeared at the edge of the ruins. They wore matching dark red combat uniforms. There was no fortress emblem on their chests, only a black ring symbol. Not people from the Zhao family. Not Qing in military either. The leading man glanced at the boar corpse, then looked at the short staff in my hand. You killed it. Yes. Alone. Is there anyone else here? The 3 exchanged glances. The leading man took a step forward. Take out your identity card. You first. He narrowed his eyes. Kid, do you know who we are? No. Then cut the crap. The companion behind him had already placed a hand on his blade hilt. I did not move. But the perception sequence captured a strange fluctuation from their bodies. It wasn't ordinary gene lock energy. That energy was mixed. Chaotic. Like several incompatible things had been forcibly stuffed into the same body. Inside the leading man's right arm, there was even a life signal that did not belong to a human. Something was wriggling beneath his skin and flesh. I stared at his arm. What is that thing inside you? The man's expression changed instantly. You can see it? The 2 people behind him drew their blades at the same time. Clang. The blades glowed with dark green light. They were not alloy combat blades. They were more like weapons polished from some kind of mutated beast bone. The leading man wasted no more words. Take him alive. The 2 lunged from the left and right. 3rd tier speed. But under dual sequence parallel operation, their movements were too clear. Left side, slash at the neck. Right side, seal the legs. The leading man didn't move. He was waiting for me to dodge. Then he would use the thing in his right arm to ambush me. I smiled slightly. Tonight really is lively. Speed sequence, fully activated. I disappeared from where I stood in an instant. The man on the left slashed through empty air. Where is he? Behind. Too late. I was already standing behind him. The short staff rose and smashed toward the back of his neck. Bang. His body went limp, and he fell forward directly. The man on the right suddenly turned. His blade slashed horizontally. I lowered my head to avoid it, then rammed my shoulder into his chest. No strength sequence, but a full-speed impact still sent him flying off the ground. I grabbed his wrist and used the momentum to fling him. Boom. He crashed beside the boar corpse and rolled several times before stopping. The leading man finally attacked. His right arm suddenly swelled. His skin split open. A pitch-black tentacle stabbed out from the flesh, aiming straight for my heart. Fast. Twice as fast as the other 2. But that thing was alive too. As long as it was alive, it could not escape the perception sequence. The instant the tentacle shot out, I had already turned sideways. The black spike swept past my chest. I raised my hand and grabbed it. Cold. Slimy. Still struggling. The leading man's expression changed dramatically. Let go. You answer first. My 5 fingers tightened. What is this? The black tentacle suddenly split open into a mouth, dense sharp teeth biting toward my hand. I directly pressed it to the ground, then stepped on it. Puff! Black blood burst out. The leading man threw his head back and screamed. That tentacle was connected to his nerves. Crushing the tentacle was equivalent to crushing half his arm. You're courting death. He drew his blade with his left hand and lunged at me like a madman. I took one step forward. The short staff stabbed out. It stopped in front of his throat, only half an inch away. The man froze. I stared into his eyes. Can you talk now? He panted heavily, his forehead covered in cold sweat. You can't kill me. Reason? We are from Black Ring. Never heard of it. The man clenched his teeth. Black Ring is responsible for supplying mutated beast gene materials to the first-class fortress. Kill me, and you won't even be able to leave Qing'an Fortress. Threatening me. I'm reminding you. His emotions grew more and more agitated. The remaining black flesh on his right arm was also wriggling frantically. I could feel that thing moving toward his heart, not fleeing, self-destructing. I abruptly withdrew the short staff. Retreated. The next second, the man's chest bulged. He lowered his head in terror. No. Boom. Flesh exploded. Black spikes shot out from inside his body in all directions. I instantly retreated more than 10 meters. But the other two men lying on the ground had no time to escape. Dense spikes pierced through their bodies. Their screams only lasted an instant. All three died. The ruins fell silent again. I stood in the distance and looked at the corpses on the ground. The leading man's body had already been hollowed out, but that mass of black flesh was still crawling. It squeezed out of the corpse, dragging broken tentacles, trying to drill into a crack in the ground. I walked over and stepped on it. The perception sequence sent a strong fluctuation. This thing was afraid. It had consciousness. I bent down and used the short staff to pick open the leading man's coat. A metal plate fell out. A black ring. A string of numbers engraved below it. At the very bottom, there was also a line of tiny words. Experimental subject, transport team. I stared at that line. Experimental subject? The black flesh beneath my foot suddenly struggled violently. I increased the force. Pop! It shattered completely. At the same time, an extremely faint wisp of black energy drifted out from the flesh, attempting to burrow into my ankle. The origin gene lock immediately vibrated. Golden light lit up beneath my skin. The black energy recoiled sharply as if it had encountered its natural enemy. But it failed to escape. The golden light curled around it and swallowed it directly. A fragment of chaotic memory then rushed into my consciousness. Iron cages, experiment tables, people crying and screaming, culture chambers filled with black liquid, and a door beneath Qing'an Fortress. On the door was carved a black ring. My eyes abruptly opened. Beneath the fortress? The silver coordinate given to me by the genetic memory during the day also pointed inside the fortress. One was a relic of the Silver-White City. One was the so-called Black Ring's experimental base. Could the two places be connected? In the distance, the roar of vehicles suddenly sounded. More people were approaching. At least 12. Among them were two fourth-tier life signals. I did not continue lingering. I picked up the Black Ring metal plate, turned, and rushed toward the city wall. Speed and perception operated at the same time. Before the searchlight swept over, I had already changed routes in advance. 2 minutes later, I arrived at the 12th section. Climb the wall. Land. Disappear into the shadows of the pipe corridor. Behind me on the wasteland, several black armored vehicles charged into the ruins. The doors opened. Fully armed people quickly surrounded the three corpses. A person wearing a silver mask stepped out of the vehicle and looked at the crushed black flesh. The parasite is dead. Someone beside him crouched to inspect the wounds. Number 2 and Number 3 were killed by bone spikes. Number 1's parasite self-destructed early. The silver-masked person asked, "Who forced it to self-destruct?" There are no complete battle traces at the scene. The inspector raised his head. The other party dealt with them very quickly. How quickly? No more than 10 seconds. The silver-masked person was silent for a moment. Is the identity plate still here? No. Search. We already did. The inspector's expression was ugly. It was taken. The silver-masked person turned his head and looked toward Qing'an Fortress. Seal the information. Check all entry and exit records tonight. That person hasn't gone far. He is inside Qing'an Fortress. By then, I had already returned to the dormitory. Lin Chuan was still asleep. I closed the window, took off my jacket, and took the black ring metal plate out of my pocket. The moment the metal plate touched the dark silver box, it suddenly began to heat up. The silver words on the box lit up as well. A wisp of smoke actually rose from the black ring. It was like two things that were natural enemies had finally collided. I stared at them. The silver-white city. Black ring. The scarlet curtain of sky. There had to be a connection between them. But before I could continue studying, footsteps suddenly came from outside the corridor. Very light. But they stopped in front of my door. Immediately after, someone knocked. Knock. 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 Qin Yuan. It was a woman's voice. Calm. Clear. Open the door. I pressed the metal plate into the box and quickly closed the lid. Who is it? The person outside paused for 1 second. Su Yuqing. I looked toward the door. She had come faster than I expected. It's this late. What's the matter? Yes. What is it? Tomorrow's squad confrontation match. Su Yuqing's voice had no fluctuation. I've been assigned to your team as the accompanying data analyst. I didn't open the door. So I came to get to know you in advance. It's midnight. I know. Do researchers not sleep? The other side of the door was silent for 2 seconds. Then her voice sounded again. We do. But your data is more important than sleep. I narrowed my eyes. That sentence sounded like the truth. And also like a probe. The perception sequence passed through the door. Su Yuqing was alone. Her heartbeat was slightly fast. Her breathing was steady. There were no weapons on her. But in her pocket, there was an encrypted communicator currently running. I walked over and opened the door. Su Yuqing stood in the corridor. White research coat. Silver-framed glasses. A stack of files held in her arms. She first looked at my face. Then glanced inside the dormitory. May I come in? No. Why? Lin Chuan is asleep. Lin Chuan's snoring came from the bed. Su Yuqing fell silent. I asked her. The information? She handed me a list. Second round grouping. I lowered my head and glanced over it. 8-person squad. Me. Lin Bei. The limping warehouse administrator. Several other first-round teammates. The final column read, Su Yuqing. Identity, battlefield data analyst. I raised my head and looked at her. You applied for this yourself? Yes. Why choose me? Because you're abnormal. A very direct answer. I stared at her. What's abnormal? Su Yuqing pushed up her glasses. Someone with a score of 857 kilograms should not have led 7 ordinary people to obtain 31 points. What else? An ordinary patrol soldier should not understand how to exploit territorial conflicts between mutated beasts. What else? She paused. I haven't slept for 43 hours. I don't want to say it all at once. I smiled. Then go sleep. I was about to close the door, but Su Yuqing raised her hand to block it. Qin Yuan. Anything else? 2 new people have been added to the Zhao family's team tomorrow. She handed me another file. There were no names on it. Only 2 code names. Mountain Ghost. Pujuan. The strength fields were all blank. Su Yuqing lowered her voice. They come from the first-class fortress. They have no public combat records. But I found out they were originally Zhao family seeds prepared for an A-rank ruin. The Zhao family temporarily transferred them here because of you. I took the file. Thank you. You're not afraid? Would fear help? No. Then I'm not afraid. Before closing the door, I looked at her once more. Researcher Su. Next time you monitor me, use a device without infrared auxiliary light. Her expression changed for the first time, though only for an instant. But I saw it clearly. I continued. Also, the wind is strong on the roof of the 3rd residential building. Don't stand there too long. You'll get sick easily. The corridor fell completely silent. Su Yuqing stared at me. Her heartbeat jumped from 72 to 91. I closed the door. Click. The lock caught. Lin Chuan's voice suddenly came from the bed. Brother Yuan, you weren't asleep? Just woke up. He poked his head out from under the blanket and gave me a meaningful look. A female researcher personally came to your door in the middle of the night. When did you 2 meet? Shut up. She even said you're more important than sleep. Say one more word, and I'll throw you out. Lin Chuan immediately shrank back under the blanket. But he was still laughing. I ignored him. I took out the black ring metal plate again and placed it beside the box. Outside the door, Su Yuqing did not leave immediately. She stood there for about 10 seconds. Then her footsteps gradually faded away. I looked at the closed door, and I already had a conclusion in my mind. She was not an ordinary researcher. An ordinary researcher would not know about classified seed candidates from the first-class fortress, would not carry an encrypted communicator, and would not have the authority to track my movements. But just now, she had warned me. That meant she had no hostility for the time being. Or rather, her mission was not to kill me. At least, not right now. I withdrew my gaze and looked at the black ring identity plate in my hand. The Zhao family, Su Yuqing, black ring, and the silver ruins beneath the fortress. Tomorrow, all of them would collide. I hid the items away again and lay back down. Lin Chuan poked his head out again. Brother Yuan, speak. Can you win tomorrow? Yes. But there are experts from the first-class fortress on the other side. I know. Then how are you so sure? I closed my eyes. 2 sequences operated silently within my body. Perception, speed, perfectly parallel. Because they came too late. What does that mean? If it had been before tonight, I might have had to take them seriously. And now, I pulled up the thin blanket. Now, they're just here to help me test my new ability. I left the city more and more often. The crack in the 12th section of the city wall became my personal passage. The patches of quick-setting concrete had been stepped into shallow marks by me. Every time I returned, I would grab a handful of wasteland mud and smooth it over. The searchlight jammed once every 23 seconds. Blind spot, for seconds. Now, I could climb out with my eyes closed. For 3 nights in a row, I swept through the outer 5 kilometers around Qing'an Fortress. Speed sequence handled travel. Perception sequence handled scanning. With the 2 sequences operating at the same time, my effective perception radius exceeded 700 meters. For every kilometer I advanced, the life signals within 2 square kilometers along the way would enter my mind. After 3 nights, a map of mutated beast distribution had basically taken shape. To the northeast, the collapsed overpass, a gathering ground of D-rank mutated lizards. To the southwest, the dried-up riverbed. About 30 E-rank mutated rats. Individually weak, but gathered together, they could reach a D-rank threat level. And several smaller nests. None of them had much value. What truly made me stop was the ruins 4.3 kilometers northwest. That place had once been the commercial center of the satellite city. Now, the mall had collapsed. The office buildings had fallen. Steel bars jutted out from the rubble like rows of rotting ribs. On the surface, it looked completely dead. But as I crouched on a ruined building 300 meters away and scanned it once, I couldn't smile anymore. Below the ruins, it was full of life signals. At the outermost layer, over a dozen, D rank to D+ rank, distributed in a ring like sentries. The middle layer, 7 or 8. They gathered in the same underground area, moving in an orderly pattern with clear hierarchy. At the deepest point, there was one more. It almost did not move. Its heartbeat was very slow, 12 times per minute. But every heartbeat felt like a heavy hammer smashing into my perception. Thump, thump, thump. Its bioelectric field intensity was more than 4 times that of an ordinary D-rank mutated beast. C-rank. I lay on the ruined building and observed for 40 minutes. In the end, I reached one conclusion. This was not an ordinary gathering point. It was a complete nest. The outer mutated beasts were responsible for vigilance. The middle layer mutated beasts were responsible for defense. And the C-rank beast at the deepest point was the nest lord. Qing'an Fortress had clear regulations regarding places like this. If a C-rank nest was discovered, it had to be reported immediately. For clearing operations, at least a B-rank combatant had to lead the team. If a third-tier awakener entered alone, the mortality rate exceeded 70%. I did not go in immediately. Wanting to die and wanting to grow stronger were 2 different things. Over the next 2 nights, I repeatedly scanned it from the east, west, south, and north. Finally, I built a rough structure of the nest in my mind. There were 3 underground levels in total. The first level, an underground parking garage. The largest area. Collapsed concrete pillars, overturned cars, and broken walls cut the originally open space into a maze. Over a dozen D-rank mutated beasts were scattered at passage nodes. The second level, an underground utility corridor. Narrow passages. Complex structure. 7 or 8 D+ rank mutated beasts gathered there. The third level was the deepest. The perception signal was already somewhat blurry. I could only judge that it was a relatively isolated space. That C-rank nest lord was inside. The nest had 4 entrances in total. 2 on the north side, 1 on the south side, 1 on the west side. The western entrance was the most hidden. It was tucked behind the underground garage exit of a collapsed office building, with a slanted concrete slab pressed against the outside. There was only one D-rank sentry there, and every 15 minutes, it would leave once, 40 meters east, to drink water, then return after 2 minutes. That was my chance. On the third night, I made my decision. Enter. Kill the Nest Lord. D-rank mutated beasts were already useless to me. After dual sequence parallel operation, killing them was not much different from stepping on insects. No pressure, no danger, and no growth. If the gene lock wanted to continue evolving, doing push-ups in the dormitory would not be enough. It needed stimulation, pressure. It needed the gene chain to be forced to its limit, then actively adapt, restructure, and evolve. The catalyst drug had proven this point. So, I needed a real opponent. That C-rank Nest Lord was perfect. Of course, I also prepared for the worst. First level, D-rank sentries. Threat, 0. As long as the perception sequence was fully active, I could pass right under their noses. Second level, 7 or 8 D+ rank mutated beasts. Threat, low. Individually, they still weren't my opponents. The only problem was being surrounded by them at the same time. The solution was simple. Don't alert them. The underground corridor was complicated enough, and I had already calculated 3 stealth routes in advance. As for the C-rank Nest Lord on the third level, threat, very high, and the only unknown. I didn't know its specific ability, didn't know its speed, didn't know the limit of its defense, and didn't know whether dual sequences could kill it. But I had an escape route. From the third level to the western entrance, the shortest distance was 170 meters. At my speed, a full sprint would take less than 3 seconds. C-rank mutated beasts were usually massive. In narrow utility corridors, it wouldn't be able to catch up to me. If I could beat it, I would kill it. If I couldn't, I would withdraw. During the day, I patrolled as usual, inspecting the city wall, cleaning drainage outlets, recording mutated beast traces, reporting safety to the sentry post every 2 hours. Lin Chuan talked nonstop beside me. Did you hear? The Zhao family transferred 2 more people over. From the main residence. Their strength is still confidential. Some people say they're 3rd tier. Others say 4th tier. Lin Chuan stopped walking. Brother Yuan, are you even listening? I am. And all you can say is What else should I say? Aren't you worried? I pulled a rotten cloth out of the drainage outlet and threw it into the cleaning box. Will worrying make them weaker? No. Then what am I worried for? Lin Chuan had nothing to say and could only mutter a few complaints. I ignored him. In my mind, I was still simulating tonight's route. Western entrance. First level east passage. Second level south utility corridor. Maintenance shaft. Third level. Find the Nest Lord. Kill it. Simple as that. At 11 that night, I climbed out of the city wall. There was no moon tonight. Thick clouds pressed down over the entire wasteland, and the surroundings were so dark that I couldn't see my own fingers. But before the perception sequence, darkness meant nothing. I advanced northwest. Not too fast. Every 100 meters, I stopped to scan once. High-grade mutated beasts. Other awakeners. Patrol teams that might expose me. None. 40 minutes later, that ruin appeared within my perception range. The collapsed office building was like a giant tomb. Night wind blew through the shattered glass curtain wall, producing a piercing wail. The western entrance was 80 meters ahead. I crouched behind a broken wall, locking onto that D-rank sentry. It paused for a few seconds, then turned east, going to drink water. 2 minutes. I directly activated the speed sequence. My figure swept close to the ground. 80 meters vanished in a flash. Beneath the slanted concrete slab, a pitch-black underground garage entrance was exposed. Moisture mixed with the smell of rotting flesh and mold continuously poured out from within. Like an open mouth, I stood before the entrance and took one final breath of the cold wasteland wind. C-rank, don't disappoint me. I entered the darkness. The underground parking garage was larger than I had expected. Concrete pillars had collapsed across large areas, cutting the originally open space into countless sections. Abandoned cars lay overturned in muddy water. The rusted vehicle shells were covered with scratch marks and dried blood. The ground was covered in black sludge. If a normal person stepped into it, every step would make noise. but I saw every foothold in advance. Perception sequence fully activated. All the D-rank sentries on the first level appeared in my consciousness. The closest one was 47 meters to the northeast. Its back was facing me. It was lying beneath an overturned car, gnawing on bones. I stuck close to the western wall and advanced silently. Sludge, gravel, steel bars. Before every footfall, the perception sequence judged the ground condition first. Would this stone roll? Was there an empty space beneath this mud? Would this steel bar make noise if stepped on? I didn't need to gamble, nor did I need trial and error. 7 minutes later, I passed through the first level. 0 alerts. The second level entrance was in the southeast corner of the parking garage. It was a downward vehicle ramp. Most of it had already collapsed, and the narrowest section could only be passed through sideways. I squeezed into the crack and continued downward. The air grew wetter and wetter. Dark green moss crawled over the walls. In the corners grew fungi that emitted blue light, like opened eyes. Farther down, the underground structure completely changed. Large areas of the ground had collapsed. Dense municipal pipelines were exposed, interweaving with each other like mechanical organs after being cut open. 7 or 8 D-plus rank life signals were scattered among them. I stopped for 30 seconds and recalculated the route. The nearest one was 22 meters directly ahead. A mutated lizard type, currently dormant. It happened to block the only straight passage. I didn't kill it. Instead, I detoured to the right and crawled into a broken pipeline nearly 2 meters in diameter. The inside of the pipeline was very damp. I bent forward for 40 meters, then crawled out from the other end. That mutated lizard was still sleeping. Next, I kept changing routes, crawling through pipes, climbing over rubble, crossing collapsed areas. There was still a small accident in the middle. Crack. A concrete slab beneath my foot suddenly split. The sound traveled far. 15 meters away, a D-plus rank mutated dog abruptly raised its head. I immediately held my breath. It stood up, its nose twitching continuously. Once, twice. It began turning its head toward me. My hand was already gripping the short staff. As long as it came 5 meters closer, I would directly twist off its neck. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. 8 seconds. The mutated dog did not discover me. It growled, then lay back down. I released the short staff. Continued forward. Second level. 12 minutes. Still 0 alerts. The vertical shaft leading to the third level was at the end of the southern side of the utility corridor. The iron ladder was almost completely rotten. I didn't step on it. I braced both hands against the shaft wall and slowly descended. 8 meters. 6 meters. 3 meters. The Nest Lord's life signal grew closer and closer. Every heartbeat impacted my perception. Thump. Thump. My feet touched the ground. I had reached the third level. This was an abandoned subway station. Large sections of the platform tiles had fallen off. The rails had been twisted into knots by some enormous force. Rubble and bones covered the ground. Some were human. Some belonged to mutated beasts. The air was filled with a foul stench mixed from rotting flesh and sulfur. I looked toward the center of the platform. It lay there. Its body was over 4 meters long. Its shoulder height was nearly 2 meters. Dark gray scales covered its entire body, reflecting an iron blue sheen under the dim blue fungal light. That was not an ordinary keratin layer. It was truly metallized tissue. 2 rows of sharp bone spines extended from its neck all the way to the tip of its tail, each one about as long as an adult's forearm. Iron spine lizard. C-rank mutated beast. It lay on the platform, head resting on its forelimbs, like a sleeping armored vehicle. Every time it breathed, 2 clouds of white vapor sprayed from its nostrils. I was 35 meters away from it. I didn't rush to attack. The perception sequence swept over its body bit by bit. Heart rate, 11 times per minute. Body temperature, 42 degrees. Muscle density far beyond D-rank. A large amount of metallic minerals deposited in its bones. The most troublesome part was that scale armor. Ordinary alloy weapons would have difficulty piercing it. My short staff was no exception. There has to be a weakness. I continued scanning. 10 seconds. 15 seconds. 20 seconds. Found it. The first weakness was beneath the armpit. On the inner side where the forelimb connected to the torso, the scale coverage was incomplete. The second weakness was the throat. There was a palm-sized triangular patch of soft tissue there. No scale protection. I chose the throat. The armpit required close-range attack. If I missed, I would be struck head-on by its forelimb. The throat was different. When it woke from sleep, it would inevitably raise its head first. The instant it raised its head, the throat would be completely exposed. Judging from its size, the time window would be about 0.5 seconds. Enough. I lowered my breathing. Heartbeat dropped to 68. Perception sequence locked onto the target. Speed sequence ready at full power. 35 meters. 3, 2, 1. I charged out. Not a start. A launch. The tiles beneath my feet instantly shattered, and my body turned into an afterimage. In less than 0.8 seconds, I had already closed in to 15 meters. The iron spine lizard suddenly opened its eyes. Its dark, golden vertical pupils locked onto me instantly. It raised its head. Throat exposed. The short staff in my hand stabbed straight out. Target, triangular soft tissue. But just as the staff tip was about to hit, the iron spine lizard's forelimbs exerted force at the same time. It actually shifted half a meter to the right. My pupils contracted instantly. Its reaction is that fast? The attack path shifted. Only 2 centimeters. But those 2 centimeters caused the short staff to slide from the soft tissue to the edge of the scales. Clang. A piercing metallic impact echoed through the subway station. Sparks exploded. The staff tip barely broke through the outer scales, but was caught by the denser metal tissue beneath. Less than 3 centimeters pierced in. Far from enough. I immediately released force. Pulled the staff back. Retreated. But the iron spine lizard had already completed its counterattack. Waist muscles contracted. Tail sweep. The perception sequence issued a warning 0.04 seconds in advance. I did not jump backward. I directly slid low against the ground. Boom. The giant tail covered in iron armor swept past 2 centimeters above my head. The terrifying air pressure flattened my hair. The tail slammed into the concrete pillar behind me. The entire pillar was snapped in half. The upper half of the concrete, carrying steel reinforcement bars, flew more than 10 meters away and smashed onto the tracks, shattering on the spot. I flipped to my feet and glanced at the broken pillar. Now this is what C-Rank should be like. The iron spine lizard had fully awakened. Its forelegs propped up its massive body. All the bone spines on its back stood upright. It stared at me, a low growl like grinding metal rumbling in its throat. The sneak attack had failed. Then we would fight head-on. But if I wanted to blast through metallic scales head-on, speed and perception alone weren't enough. I needed strength. 3 sequences. The moment that thought appeared, I made my decision. No hesitation. Maintain perception sequence. Maintain speed sequence. Strength sequence. Activate. Boom. A third stream of gene energy surged out from my heart. 3 sequences operated simultaneously. The gene lock load shot from 40% to 75% in an instant. My heartbeat broke 140. My blood turned scorching hot. My temples throbbed again and again. Blue veins bulged across both arms. Golden light lit up beneath my skin. My body was protesting, but my gene chain did not break. The origin gene lock held. As expected, it's possible. The iron spine lizard did not give me time to adapt. It opened its giant mouth and charged straight at me. Its body, over 4 meters long, lunged at full speed. Its scales collided with the ground, sounding like an armored vehicle crashing into the subway station. I charged forward too. Perception locked on. Speed executed. Strength accumulated. The iron spine lizard pounced in front of me, its sharp teeth snapping shut. I did not move left, nor did I move right. I went upward. Both feet stepped onto its forehead, and I kicked off with force. Crack. Its enormous jaws snapped shut beneath my feet. It bit empty air. I flipped over its head. While I was still in midair, my gaze had already locked onto the back of its neck. Between the 2 rows of bone spines, there was a 10-centimeter wide gap. There, the scales were squeezed by the bases of the bone spines and were clearly thinner. The third weakness. I gripped the short staff in reverse. Strength sequence at full power. Stab. Clang. The sound of metal shattering exploded. The short staff blasted into the gap between the scales like an armor-piercing round. Armor pierced. Flesh entered. The iron spine lizard let out a deafening roar. The entire subway station trembled. It twisted its body madly, bone spines swaying violently, trying to throw me off. I grabbed the base of a bone spine with one hand. With the other, I gripped the short staff and continued pressing downward. 10 centimeters, 15 centimeters, 20 centimeters. The tip touched the spine. The iron spine lizard suddenly slammed toward the wall on one side. The perception sequence instantly issued a warning. I didn't dodge. If I let go, everything I had done just now would be wasted. Break. Strength sequence. Overload output. The muscles in my arm instantly tightened. My bones let out faint sounds of unbearable strain. The web between my thumb and index fingers split open on the spot. Blood flowed down the staff. But in that same instant, the short staff pierced through the spine. Crack! The iron spine lizard's body abruptly stiffened. The next second, its front limbs were still charging forward, but its hind legs had completely lost control. Its massive body toppled sideways on the spot. Boom! It smashed heavily onto the rails. Before landing, I let go and leapt away, rolling twice before stopping on one knee. The iron spine lizard was not dead yet. Its rear half was already paralyzed, but its two front claws were still frantically tearing at the ground. Its sharp claws ripped through the platform, leaving one deep groove after another. It opened its mouth and growled at me. Its dark, golden vertical pupils were full of rage and unwillingness. I stood up and walked in front of it. The iron spine lizard suddenly thrust its head forward, trying to bite me. But after its spine had snapped, it couldn't even lift its head very high. I stepped on its lower jaw. You dodged once earlier. What about this time? I pulled out the short staff embedded in the back of its neck. The iron spine lizard twitched again. Blood poured from the broken armor. I moved to its front and crouched down. The short staff aimed at the triangular soft tissue below its throat. No lateral movement. No resistance. No deviation. It's over. Puff. One thrust through the throat. The iron spine lizard's entire body tensed violently. Its two front claws scraped out the last few sparks on the rails. Then all strength dissipated at once. Its head dropped heavily. The dark golden vertical pupils went out completely. C-rank iron spine lizard. Dead. I pulled out the short staff and let out a long breath. The load from running 3 sequences had not gone down yet. My arms were sore. My temples ached faintly. My heartbeat was still above 130. Peak load, 82%. Less than 20% away from my current limit. I looked at the split web of my hand. The cost wasn't too great, and the result proved that I had bet correctly. The origin gene lock could operate multiple sequences in parallel. 2 sequences worked. 3 sequences worked too. Still not enough. I clenched my fist. If the iron spine lizard's sideways shift just now had been a little faster, my first attack might have been countered by its bite. If its spine had been a little harder, my short staff would have broken first. I won this battle, but it hadn't been easy. Just as I was preparing to leave, the perception sequence caught an abnormal signal. From the iron spine lizard's chest cavity, there was still a mass of energy there. Not a heartbeat, nor a bioelectric field. Very faint, but unusually pure. I crouched down and inserted the short staff into the gap between the scales on its chest. Pry. Metallic scales broke apart one by one. Beneath them were dark red muscles and gray-white bones. I followed the energy signal deeper. The position was close to the heart. My fingers soon touched something hard and smooth. I grabbed it and pulled it out. A dark cyan crystal the size of a thumb lay in my palm. The surface of the crystal was smooth. Inside, flowing light slowly rotated. Its temperature was very high, like a miniature sun. A fragment of genetic memory surfaced. Beast core. The energy core within high-grade mutated beasts. It could be devoured. It could strengthen gene locks. It could also serve as an energy source for certain ancient devices. I stared at the beast core, and my heartbeat quickened again. Killing a C-rank mutated beast was only the beginning. This thing was the real reward. But there was no time to study it now. Roars came from above. The commotion before the iron spine lizard died had already alerted the beast groups on the first and second levels. Over a dozen life signals were moving quickly. I stuffed the beast core into my inner pocket. Time to go. Speed sequence at full power. I rushed toward the vertical shaft. 8 meters high. Climbed in 3 seconds. After entering the second level, I no longer hid. Several D+ rank mutated beasts sensed the movement and charged over at the same time. Roar. A mutated dog lunged from behind a pipe. I turned sideways to let it pass, then casually stabbed the short staff into its eye. It screamed and fell. I didn't finish it off. kept charging. The second mutated beast had just blocked the passage when I had already stepped along the wall and flipped over its head. It turned to chase, but it couldn't even see my shadow. First level, western entrance. 60 seconds later, I charged out of the underground garage. The wasteland's cold wind poured into my lungs head-on. Behind me, the ruins had completely fallen into chaos. Roars came one after another. The mutated beasts in the nest were searching for their nest lord, but all they would find was a corpse. I didn't look back. I accelerated directly toward the southeast. The city wall grew closer and closer. The beast core rested against my chest, its heat piercing through my clothes like a constantly beating ember. At the same time, the origin gene lock began operating on its own. A strand of dark cyan energy seeped out of the beast core, passed through the fabric, merged into my body. My steps paused. The gene map inside me had actually lit up in a small area. Not strength, not speed, not perception. It was a region that had never opened before. Golden text slowly surfaced. High purity life energy detected. Third layer gene lock loading conditions partially achieved. New sequence adapting. I stared at the words inside my consciousness. New sequence. The next second, the beast core suddenly vibrated. A large amount of energy rushed into my heart. My feet staggered violently. Pain exploded from my chest. It was not the full-body tearing pain of the catalyst drug. It was more like something was awakening deep within my genes. The mutated beasts in the ruins were still roaring. Even farther away, new life signals had also been alarmed. One of them clearly exceeded SSS-Rank. It was moving toward this place. Very fast. I forcibly suppressed the turmoil inside me and restarted the speed sequence. Wake up later. Right now, we leave first. I turned into an afterimage and rushed toward the city wall. 3 minutes later, the 12th section appeared in my view. The searchlight was sweeping in this direction. I did not slow down. The perception sequence calculated the beam trajectory in advance. 23-second cycle. For second blind spot. 5 seconds left. For seconds. 3 seconds. I stepped onto the cracks in the wall and exerted force upward. 2 seconds. Flipped onto the battlement. 1 second. The beam jammed. I leapt down from the other side, landing silently in the fortress's shadow. For seconds later, the searchlight resumed. The beam swept over the empty wall top. There was nothing. I quickly withdrew along the shadows. No one saw me leave the city, and no one knew that just now, I had entered a C-rank nest alone, killed the nest lord, taken the beast core. Even less did anyone know that the fourth sequence of the origin gene lock had already begun awakening. When I returned to the dormitory, it was 2:40 a.m. Close the door. Lock it. Pull the curtains tight. Then push the wardrobe over to firmly block the door. Only after finishing all of that did I sit on the bed and take the dark cyan crystal out of the inner pocket of my jacket. Beast core. Only the size of a thumb. Its surface was smooth, but flowing light continuously spun inside. A dark cyan halo fell across my palm like a small piece of solidified moonlight. I activated the perception sequence. The moment my consciousness entered the beast core, the energy structure inside completely unfolded. Dense, pure, highly compressed. When the iron spine lizard was alive, its energy spread throughout its body. But after its death, that power had all been compressed into this crystal. More importantly, this energy was not chaotic. It was rotating, layer within layer. The closer to the core, the greater the density. At the very center, it was almost still, like a miniature star. I stared at the beast core for a few seconds. This thing doesn't seem naturally formed. At the very least, it shouldn't merely be a random crystal condensed after a mutated beast died. I tightened my grip on the beast core and injected the power of the origin gene lock into it. Buzz. My palm vibrated slightly. A fragment of genetic memory directly crashed into my consciousness. Beast core. Core energy crystal of high-grade mutated life forms. Can be used as a gene catalysis auxiliary material. The information ended there. I opened my eyes. Auxiliary catalysis. The previous silver drug had been the main catalyst. It was like explosive. It directly assaulted the gene lock, forcibly tearing open the next layer. Endure it and break through. Fail to endure it, and the genes collapsed. Since the beast core was an auxiliary material, its function was probably twofold. First, energy replenishment. Gene restructuring consumed enormous amounts of power. If the supply was interrupted halfway, the entire restructuring process would fail. The beast core could fill that gap and increase the success rate. Second, it might store part of the iron spine lizard's genetic information. Metal scales, ironized bones, super strong defense. If the origin gene lock could analyze those things, perhaps it could extract a new direction of evolution from them. That possibility was tempting and dangerous. Whether human genes could be compatible with mutated beast genes, no one knew. Absorbing it recklessly might grant power. It might also turn me into a monster. I would not gamble. At least not now. I pinched the beast core and held it up against the faint light seeping through the gap in the curtain. The flowing light inside seemed slower than before. Its energy was decaying. Although the speed was slow, it was indeed being lost. I need something to preserve it. I lifted the bedding and took out the dark silver metal box from the hidden layer. The lid slid open silently. Inside were the metal plate and the already empty injector. I moved the injector aside, then placed the beast core onto the silver-gray lining. The moment they touched, the unknown words on the box lit up. Only once, then quickly faded. But the flowing light inside the beast core, which had been slowing, stabilized again. I narrowed my eyes. As expected, it works. This box could store beast cores. In other words, the Silver-White City had once come into contact with the same thing. They had hunted mutated beasts, studied beast cores. They might even have used beast cores as routine resources. This also proved that that civilization had once faced a disaster similar to Earth's. Mutated beasts. Source radiation. The scarlet curtain of sky. The so-called screening might have been the same process from the very beginning. I closed the box and stuffed it back into the hidden layer under the bed. Then I treated my wound. The web of my right hand was still seeping blood. I disinfected it simply with alcohol, then wrapped it in bandages. The moment the alcohol touched the wound, a sharp sting immediately drilled into my arm. I didn't even frown. Compared to the pain of the catalyst drug restructuring my genes, this little injury was no different from an itch. The real problem was the deep soreness in my arm. Running 3 sequences simultaneously placed a far greater load than 2 sequences. After running 2 sequences, my body required about 2 hours to recover. For 3 sequences, the recovery time was at least 6 hours. I recorded the data. 3-sequence peak load, 82%. Controllable for short periods. During prolonged combat, risk rises rapidly. Muscles, bones, and nerves all come under pressure. If I forcibly exceeded the limit, the consequences were still uncertain, but most likely, they wouldn't feel pleasant. I lay back down on the bed. The alarm clock showed 3:15 a.m. Less than 3 hours until the wake-up whistle. I had to rest. But after closing my eyes, the look in the iron spine lizard's eyes before death surfaced again. Ferocious, furious, unwilling. Finally, completely extinguished. It was very strong, but I was stronger than it. So it died. The rules of the apocalypse were that simple. The weak were eaten, the strong lived. No, it was more than that. I remembered that sentence from the genetic memory again. That was not a natural disaster. That was a sieve. If the scarlet curtain of sky was a screening device, then the slaughter between humanity and mutated beasts might itself be part of the screening. They tossed an entire world into a meat grinder, created monsters, created awakeners, then watched who could survive. In the end, they took away the so-called usable seeds. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling in the darkness. Usable? For whom? To be used for what? No one answered. In the depths of my consciousness, only the burning silver-white city flashed past. I actively cut off my thoughts. There was too little information. Even if I thought until my head split open, I wouldn't get an answer. If I wanted to know the truth, I needed to continue deciphering the metal plate and unlock deeper genetic memories. In the end, it came down to 2 things. Time. Strength. The beast core could help me grow stronger. But not now. The catalyst drug had already been used up. The information on the metal plate had not been fully deciphered either. I didn't know how the beast core should be used, and even less did I know what would happen if I absorbed it alone. Swallowing it now wouldn't be bravery. It would be stupidity. I could wait. Wait until the gene lock truly encountered its next bottleneck, then use the beast core at the most critical moment. A trump card should be used when it could decide life or death. not wasted impatiently the moment it was obtained. I closed my eyes and sank into consciousness. The gene map slowly unfolded. Strength, speed, perception. 3 golden bands of light circled the central core. And on the shell of that core, cracks were spreading. Those were the traces left by the catalyst drug. They were also the entrance to the 4th sequence. Tonight, when I killed the iron spine lizard, the 3 sequences had been pushed to their limit. Because of that, the gene chain had undergone a faint change. The cracks were deeper than yesterday. The 4th sequence had already begun adapting. It was not far from truly opening. The beast core was the key, but it was not yet time to open the door. Before dawn, I finally fell asleep. There was no silver-white city in my dream. No scarlet curtain of sky. No dark beast tide. Only endless void. And in the center of that void, a dark cyan star slowly rotated. 3 hours later, the wake-up whistle sounded on time. I opened my eyes, dressed, folded the blanket, washed up, removed the bandage from the web of my hand. The wound had already scabbed over. The origin gene lock had strengthened my recovery ability. For a superficial injury of this degree, most of it could heal within a few hours. A little soreness remained in my arm. It did not affect movement. Lin Chuan crouched beside his bed, tying his shoes, his mouth still refusing to stop. Brother Yuan, when exactly do you think the second round will start? Soon. It's already been delayed 5 days. I heard there was a problem with the grouping. I also heard those 2 seed candidates from the Zhao family have confidential identities, confidential strength, and even their names can't be found. Lin Chuan looked up at me. Can you stop only saying Yes. Then say something else. I don't know. He stared at me, his expression becoming more and more speechless. Aren't you even a little curious? Not curious. They're clearly coming for you. I know. Then how are you still so calm? I glanced at him. Should I cry for you? Lin Chuan choked. After a long while, he waved at me. Forget it. You're like a piece of wood. Can't talk to you. The corner of my mouth moved slightly. Very faintly. Lin Chuan didn't see it. We walked out of the dormitory and joined the patrol team. No one knew that last night, for kilometers to the northwest, a C-rank nest lord had died. Even less did anyone know that the person who killed it was now wearing a washed-out patrol soldier uniform, standing in the middle of the line and waiting to sign in. My position was still toward the back, not standing out, not isolated. My pace was exactly the same as those around me. In the hidden layer beneath my bed, that C-rank beast core, valuable enough to make Qingyan Fortress's higher-ups fight until their heads bled, was quietly lying inside the silver metal box. Everything was as usual, at least on the surface. For the next 5 days, Su Yuqing did not come looking for me again. I knew she was waiting for a reasonable opportunity to approach me. And she indeed got one. After the second round grouping was finalized, the selection committee issued a notice. For people per team. Drawn matches. Before the start of the competition, all participants had to undergo a unified physical examination. Su Yuqing joined the physical examination team under the name of Auxiliary Data Collection. Her public identity was an intern researcher from the Logistics Data Analysis Department. Participating in the physical examination was reasonable. No one would suspect anything. Only later did I learn that for this examination, she had specifically brought a high-sensitivity bioenergy spectrum analyzer issued by Central. Its appearance was exactly the same as an ordinary scanner. But what was inside differed by 2 orders of magnitude. The sampling accuracy of ordinary instruments was 0.5 Hz. Hers was 0.005 Hz. At 9 that morning, I entered the medical station through the side door. There were too many people at the front entrance. Participants everywhere. Some discussed groupings. Some talked about the Zhao family seed candidates. And some placed bets on who would die in the second round. I didn't want to attract attention. The side door was more suitable. But the moment I stepped into the waiting area, I sensed a gaze fall on me. Examination room 2. Su Yuqing. She only looked at me once, then lowered her head and continued recording. Very natural, as if she had merely glanced over unintentionally. But her heartbeat sped up once. For a very short time. Not enough to hide from me. I took my number and sat in the corner to wait. The participants before me entered the examination rooms one by one. Standard process. Collect heart rate. Check body temperature. Bioenergy scan. Evaluate gene lock stability. At about 10:18, A voice came from examination room 2. D. 857, Qin Yuan. It was Su Yuqing. I stood and pushed the door open. There were 2 people inside. One medical worker responsible for basic checks. The other was her. Su Yuqing looked down at the registration form, her tone calm. Sit. I sat in front of the examination table. My gaze quickly swept through the room. 3 seconds. Door position. Distance to the window. 2 standard instruments. 1 emergency button. And the scanner in front of Su Yuqing. The shell looked ordinary. But the electromagnetic frequency it emitted while running was different from the standard equipment beside it. I looked at Su Yuqing. She looked at me too. Is there a problem? No. Extend your right hand. I placed my hand on the examination table. Back of the hand facing up. The wound at the web of my hand had already healed, leaving only a very shallow mark. Su Yuqing saw it. Her gaze lingered on the scar for less than half a second. Then she pressed the probe to my wrist. Cold. The instrument began operating. Beep. First second. Heart rate, 72. Body temperature, 36.4. Second second. Skin conductivity, normal. Third second. Surface energy level, D rank. Everything matched the identity of a patrol soldier with an 857 kilogram score. But by the 4th second, I felt a more subtle scanning energy penetrate my skin. Deeper, more precise, completely different from an ordinary examination. I raised my eyes to look at Su Yuqing. She was staring at the screen. Her expression did not change, but her breathing slowed by half a beat. As expected, she wasn't here for an ordinary physical exam. I did not immediately shut down the sequences. Shutting them down too quickly would expose me instead. The perception sequence told me that the instrument was capturing 3 streams of energy: strength, speed, perception. Although I had not been running them at full power, after these days of parallel training, the 3 sequences had already formed some kind of linkage. It was too late to fully separate them. Then I would lower them. I began breathing deeply. Inhale, exhale. At the same time, I controlled the origin gene lock and lowered the output of the 3 sequences by the same proportion. 3%, then a little more. The 3 energy peaks on the screen weakened accordingly. Su Yuqing's fingers holding the probe tightened slightly. Very lightly. Probably only 1 millimeter. She saw it. Continue breathing deeply. Her voice remained steady. I complied. Researcher Su. Does an ordinary physical exam require scanning this long? She raised her eyes to look at me. Your data is a little slow. Is the instrument slow, or is my data slow? The examination room fell silent for an instant. The medical worker beside us looked up. What's slow? Su Yuqing immediately answered. The equipment signal was unstable. She pressed a button on the side of the instrument. It has recovered. The medical worker didn't ask further. I looked at her. She looked at me too. Neither of us exposed it. A few seconds later, she removed the probe. Done. She lowered her head and filled out the form. I glanced over it. Body temperature normal. Heart rate normal. Gene lock stable. Overall assessment. Meets competition standards. Everything written was fake data. Or rather, it was the data she wanted others to see. The real contents had already been stored by that instrument. Su Yuqing pushed the form aside. Your physical condition is normal. You may participate in the 2nd round. Thank you. I stood up, but did not immediately leave. Researcher Su. Any other questions? How is my data? She pushed up her silver-framed glasses. Very ordinary. How ordinary? Meets D-rank standards. I nodded. That's good. I turned toward the door. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, her voice came from behind me again. Qin Yuan. I looked back. What is it? She looked at the shallow mark at the web of my hand. Were you injured recently? Scratched during patrol. What scratched you? Iron wire. Can iron wire cause an overload recovery response in your muscles? I smiled. Researcher Su. Didn't you just say my data was very ordinary? She fell silent. I opened the door. Next time you test me, don't make the question so obvious. After saying that, I walked out of the examination room. The waiting area was full of participants. No one noticed our conversation. I left through the same side door I had come in from. But the perception sequence remained locked on examination room 2. After the door closed, Su Yuqing did not immediately call the next person. She sat in the chair, looking at the instrument screen. Her heartbeat was 11 beats faster than before. On that screen, there should have been 3 energy peaks. 6.7 hertz. 14.2 Hz, 28.6 Hz. Three peaks distributed at equal intervals, interlocked with one another. When one reached its peak, the other two happened to fall into troughs. They were not three unrelated abilities. They were three modules under the same gene architecture. They could switch, coordinate, and operate simultaneously. Su Yuqing had always suspected that I possessed multiple sequences. Now, she had obtained proof. Even more troublesome was that she had also seen me actively lower my energy output. All three peaks dropped at the same time, by the same degree, at the same speed. Ordinary breathing could not cause that kind of change. Only active control could. She knew I was disguising myself. She also knew that the so-called D-rank was merely a surface image I had created myself. Examination room 2 was quiet for more than 10 seconds. The medical worker beside her couldn't help reminding her. Researcher Su? There are still people waiting in line. Su Yuqing closed the deep skin interface and transferred the data into an encrypted chip. I know. She opened the door and picked up the registration form again. Next, her voice was very steady. Her expression had also returned to normal. No one discovered that the hand she placed into her pocket had been pressing against that encrypted chip the whole time. After leaving the medical station, I did not immediately return to the dormitory. I turned into an alley with no surveillance and stopped. Su Yuqing did not follow me out. Right now, she was probably thinking about how to send the data out. To the research department? To the fortress higher-ups? Or to the people behind that encrypted communicator? I didn't know. But one thing was already certain. She had seen the three sequences, and she had seen my control ability. Continuing to pretend to be a simple D-rank would no longer fool her. I raised my head and looked toward the second floor of the medical station. Through walls and windows, the perception sequence could still capture her life signal. Her heart rate was recovering. Her breathing steadied again. She quickly suppressed her emotions. I spoke quietly. If a probe reaches too deep, it will be bitten. At the same time, inside examination room 2, Su Yuqing was also looking at the screenshot of my waveform. Later, when I saw the central archives, I learned that she had added 3 lines of notes after that data. Confirmed 3-sequence synchronized operation. Confirmed target possesses active disguise capability. Warning, target most likely discovered this special examination. After writing those lines, she stopped for a long time. Finally, she added one more sentence. Recommendation: change contact strategy. No longer conduct one-sided observation. Attempt cooperation.